I was the one they left behind. Broken hands, but still alive. Called it fate. Use my scars to seal your name. While I was drowning in the dark, you lit your crown with stolen flames. I watched the world collapse in fire. Heard your promise in the rain. If we go back, you're not required. So I tore your power from your veins. You thought I'd fade into the night, but I came back with sharpened light. Now I'm rising from the curse you made. No more bleeding for your throne. Black hood burning in my veins. I'll save this world on my own. You ran from the end of days. I became the storm you feared. This time I won't be erased. I'm the one who stands.
A young wounded man trembled at the sound of demands. He was a failure. What was he doing? The group in front of him urged him to steal Lord Arthur's curse. Even at his limit, Crash Valheim extended his hand. A mouth appeared among the writings on his hand. The young man, considered a failure born from the strongest lineage, made a spiritual arm emerge from the mouth in his hand that reached out to Lord Arthur. Arthur felt increasingly relieved. Black Hood, a skill that could steal curses from heroes rising against the destruction of the world caused by the imminent invasion. The man who became one of Asher's generation, Crash Valheim, healed others by taking upon himself the damage caused to them, suffering in their place. As Crash suffered, everyone rushed to give potions to Arthur, caring only for the Lord. Arthur looked up and finally saw a knight on a winged horse casting fireballs from the sky. The enemy was a frightening skull that unleashed attacks as hot as the sun. Faced with the enemy, he doubted he would win. Dropping his sword, Arthur pulled 3 women to himself, the Tigress, the Beautiful, and Mary. Embraced, they awaited the end. Crash, who was watching them, was furious. "What are you doing, bastard?" There was no confidence in Arthur. To him, hope had been extinguished, and only destruction remained. Crash's rage was supported by the countless people who had perished for them to come this far. Spending the whole day with women drove him mad. The Tigress. Ephania, the 3rd princess of the Ephania Empire of the Aegir generation, opposed Crash's words. "Shut your mouth! Arthur did everything he could. You're just trash that knows how to steal things. Don't try to preach morality." Being cursed at that moment enraged Crash, as no one there would have come this far if it weren't for his skill. He began to remind them, starting with the Beautiful, the Red Witch of the Tower of Magic. She couldn't use magic without her own voice, and he begged him to steal such a curse, but when he did and suffered in pain, she attacked him. Since then, her attitude hadn't even changed. Afterwards, she was Mary Diana, Knight of the Empire, a brainless fool who received curses everywhere, crying for him to remove them from her. Lastly, the princess who called her savior trash, even after he sacrificed his own eye to heal hers. Even she, who was from the Stero Kingdom faction, had long pursued Crash at the academy and caused so many to mock him. He had made such a sacrifice because she was one of the people from the Aegir generation, those who would save the world. Meanwhile, he was treated as a useless disgrace to the kingdom, cleaning up everyone's mess for so long. Crash questioned why he had gone through so many nightmares. He expected such things from everyone, but not from Arthur. "You should save the world, you just needed to lead these fools. I heard on the front lines of the generation and decided I would stand by." His sighed. "So why are you giving up so easily?" By this point, Arthur decided to reveal, "This world is doomed and that's why I will start everything from the beginning." Arthur revealed he possessed the skill Rebirth, surprising everyone. He revealed it was not the first time he had witnessed the world being destroyed. Now that he had obtained the technique to inherit memories, those who would accompany him would also retain their experiences. Crash widened his eyes. This meant that the chance to prevent destruction in the next world was high. Arthur smiled, confirming as he embraced his women. I will start from the beginning again with these three. Crash realized he would be left behind. But what about me? Arthur laughed in response. You are not necessary. Your ability is practical, really useful, but if we go back, you are mentally in ruins. What use is there in having you in this version? It's much more effective to choose the Crash of the new world. Crash realized he would be discarded. Arthur wanted to use him and throw him away, and he did this with a smile on his face. Don't worry, we will make good use of you. In the next world, Crash was left behind. He ran to try to catch up with them, even though he couldn't. Arthur tried not to think of him as a true companion, lying on the ground, with no strength left. Crash shouted, "Take me with you, you bastard!" Against Arthur's laughter, Crash felt his consciousness slipping away from the curses, but he didn't want to perish. Before the world itself succumbed, his ability not only stole curses, but also skills, albeit with a lower chance. He had never tried to use it on Arthur, but this was the time. The mouth in Crash's hand opened, and the black hood was activated. Arthur was skipping along, and soon the dark hand reached him. The shadowy mouth pierced through Arthur, swallowing what it could. Arthur sighed. Crash, if you haven't given up yet. Having discovered that Arthur had lived through countless worldly destructions, Crash was sure he had been used in all of them. How many times have I fallen into despair? But this time I will not be the one left behind. Arthur heard him, thinking that Crash had gone mad. Crash smiled and pointed up at the skeletal knight, replying, Maybe I really have gone mad. Arthur failed to turn back time. The monster flew towards him. At this point, Crash was laughing in revenge. You said you faced several world destructions. This time, if you want to live, make an effort for it. I will be the one to save the world next time. A burst of light made young Crash awaken. He opened his eyes to see a chandelier, looking at the riches around him. He stood up, surprised. This is the house I lived in when I was small. Crash Valheim successfully returned several years into the past. World erosion, a phenomenon in which the world is literally corroded by another dimension. The erosion zones were where the phenomenon occurred. The erosion species invaded from other worlds, and among them were those who resembled humans. The so-called worldwide invaders. An invasion happened in a village. People were running and even knights were giving up fighting. But there were those who stood against it, betrayals in a group of heroes. This group was world famous and known as the Eager Generation. Among them was a boy with a body that could seal any curse. He was treated as a receptacle for curses and was destined to be betrayed by his companions. Crash, however, woke up years before such a thing happened. Awakening in a soft bed, he screamed in surprise. He was in his large room, feeling the heat of summer, and noticed the change in climate compared to the previous day of his life. Crash remembered how, in one last attempt, he used the Black Hood on Arthur and managed to steal his regression ability. People tend to think that the Black Hood is a skill that can be used freely, without any restrictions, but that is a misconception. Each item has a lock, and the bearer of the skill needed to overcome it to steal it. The more precious the item was to its original owner, the harder it would be to break the lock, even if it was just a stone found on the street. Therefore, things that the opponent values highly, like skills, are much more difficult to steal. This made Crash wonder what was going on with Arthur. Although the ability was activated at that moment, he didn't even see a lock. There was a possibility. If there wasn't a lock, it meant that Arthur really wanted to abandon such a skill. Arthur was called the Hero King. But when Crash stopped to think, he remembered that occasionally Arthur showed an expression of exhaustion and moved as if he were just fulfilling an obligation. If he had been repeating the destruction of the world over and over again, that might have worn down his mind. Perhaps for Arthur, regression was the same as a curse. Then, he made those three inherit his memories to suffer with him. Crash believed that he had succeeded in stealing the ability with the Black Hood. It meant that the Arthur he knew had lost his regression ability and was left behind in that world on the brink of destruction, destined to collide with the Blue Knight's meteor shower. But since Arthur seemed to want to abandon the ability, Crash thought he should be grateful. He had always been left out, as if receiving curses was something anyone could do. They never cared about the suffering companion. Now that everything had changed, Crash mocked. Serves you right, you bastard. Crash was in the blue pine hall, looking at his reflection in the mirror. He realized how small he was, perhaps only 10 years old, short, with a moderately muscular body, the result of swinging a sword every day, trying to survive in the Valheim family, the strongest martial house in the kingdom of Starin. Being in the hall proved that he had just undergone the trial ceremony. At 10 years old, the ceremony defined which lord you would make a pact with and what ability would be granted to you. A moment to prove your own capabilities. The more excellent the contractor, the higher the lord's status. Direct descendants had always been valued by the Valheim family, but he was the exception, born without talent or martial strength. No lord chose him, and after that he was expelled from the main mansion, being thrown into the Blue Pine Hall. Despite being the family's greatest failure, Crash was the only one who knew about the end of the world, an end that even the Ezra generation would not be able to prevent. He wondered if he could do something about it. Clenching his fist, he encouraged himself. It's not about whether I can stop it, I have to stop it. If the world is destroyed, it will be my end too. There's no other choice. Suddenly, a butler entered the room, Ariad, who asked the young boy what he was doing there. Seeing the butler once again, Crash held his hands, showing affection. Ariad was the butler who took care of Crash, but he was also someone tasked with eliminating him with poison, handed to him by one of his brothers, Mario, who would use the poison when Crash turned 14, teaching him about betrayal for the first time. A young girl floated among her enemies, eliminating each one with her sword. When she landed, she impressed everyone, as she was only 15. The title of Saint of the Sword was not mere formality for Charlotte Valheim, Crash's half-sister. Some people commented on how the family expected so much from this prodigy, a genius born from the new lineage. Hearing the praises for Charlotte, King Valheim, another half-brother of Crash, struggled to contain his fury inside. He planned to cut down that entire lineage. Charlotte was a risk for him, so he decided to start with someone else. Veroquin summoned Ario, knowing that he was facing problems by having to take care of Crash. He handed over the poison and ordered Ario to make Crash drink at least a drop. If you do as I say, your daughter's treatment and your money problems will be resolved. Ario initially refused. Young Master Crash is someone I raised as my own son. How could I? Veroquin gestured, rousing Ario. Are you saying you would choose someone else's child over your own daughter? The old man widened his eyes and made his decision. Red painted the ground. However, the one who drank the poison was not Crash, but the butler. Falling to the ground, the butler said his farewells, apologizing to the young master. I'm sorry, but you are precious to me like a son too. Unable to bear the guilt, Ario would consume the drink and leave the world forever. Knowing this, Crash grimly questioned him. When do you plan to use the poison my brother gave you? The butler became frightened, but the young man would not let him pretend to be an idiot. Would you sacrifice me, the child of another, for your own daughter? The old man looked away, unable to respond. Crash sighed, for as the butler did not admit it, there was nothing to be done. He blamed himself for being a failure, which was why Ariod would receive such orders. The butler was surprised, as he thought the young man would cry or become angry upon discovering the truth. He felt that the young master had changed. In a composed manner, Crash ordered the butler to follow him. The two went to a large hall resembling a library. As they approached a wall, Crash commanded him to cut through it. He believed that the Valheim family's butler could easily manage such a task. Butler obeyed and released a dark energy while holding a sword. The attack was executed and struck the wall, opening a hole and revealing a passage. The butler almost fell in surprise at the sight of the secret corridor. Seeing the young man enter the passage, Ariod felt that the change in Crash was real. There was unexpectedly a lingering atmosphere of the family leader in that place. Upon seeing a large padlock on a wooden door, the protagonist recollected old memories from the last time he had been there. Everything had been on fire, but this time, he would arrive in time. Ariod asked if he should cut the chains, but the young man said he couldn't do it. Crash wanted to test his own ability. From the black hood, shadows emerged from his hand, each possessing their own mouths. The chains were broken and the padlock fell, startling the butler. Shocked, the white-haired man asked the young master if he had formed a contract with a lord. He offered some excuse. Well, yes, I just made a contract with some insignificant lord regarding the library. Inform my father if you wish. The day before, the butler had seen the young master with a look that seemed to have lost the meaning of life. Changing overnight meant he must have acquired a good skill. He shared the same bloodline as the greatest genius born in Valheim. Ariota believed that, even if he was not at the level of Lady Charlotte, the young Master Crash, as he was now, would be worth it. The butler swallowed hard and called for his young master. He lowered his head, promising that, at least until what you are trying to do was finished, he wouldn't tell anyone. Crash realized that it was a change in regression, as he had acted differently than in the past. Changes were also occurring with Ariad, but the Ariad who betrayed him remained alive in his memories. This made him wonder, did Arthur feel bothered by this discrepancy, and then let me steal the ability of regression? Crash believed that if he healed Ariad's daughter, the butler would swear loyalty to him, increasing the value of his pawns. Shrugging, He simply told the butler to do what he wanted. Putting the matter aside, he focused on the secret of the library. Upon opening the door, a powerful light revealed itself. Crash's eyes widened, and he jumped aside, dodging a fire cannon. The Flash had received numerous curses from the world's erosion, but his hair had never stood up like that. There was no mistake. There was a special grimoire there. On top of a bookshelf stood one that stood out for overflowing with power. The secret library of the Blue Pine Hall was a place where ancestors called failures in Valheim recorded their techniques and memories without omission, alongside grimoires preserved to achieve a state of mastery not through skills, but through human conquest. Initially, it was a freely accessible place, but due to one single person, it became a secret library. That person was Marius Valheim, the worst failure in the history of the Valheim family. But he was someone who became the strongest after being consumed by the world's erosion. The Flash reached out for the grimoire left behind by the worst failure. I'm sorry for the delay, ancestor. Marius Valheim was the worst failure in the family's history, but also the strongest person it has ever had. When he was at the height of his power, some of the strongest warriors in the world challenged him. However, before his strength, no one could stop him. Extreme blood immersion. He possessed the insane secret technique of absorbing the world's erosion into his own body and using that power. Crash confidently took the grimoire when he found the book in his past life. Half of it had been burned, which is why he couldn't understand about seas. He seemed to have lost his sanity by not being able to control the madness caused by the erosion. Crash had already been struck by the same power of the global erosion curse. The plan was to weaken the curses with the Black Hood first, and then somehow balance them using other curses, applying the same principle to the extreme fury of blood immersion. Crash could already imagine. If I steal a curse that controls where and deactivate it, I could become as strong as Iris. Crash called the butler Ariad and ordered, "From today on, do not let anyone enter the Blue Pine Hall." The butler left the library, just as the young master had said, ignoring the mistake he was about to make. Ariad swore he would repay such kindness. "I will refuse Lord Verokin's proposal, for young Master Crash is my master." When he received Ariad's response, Verokin nearly went insane. "You are refusing my proposal for that idiot? We cannot keep trash like him in the Valheim family, you fool. That supposed once-in-a-generation genius and that failure make me so furious. I want you to curse a certain woman. If that filthy woman's blood hadn't interfered, Sister Lilith and I could have maintained our positions in the direct lineage." He ground his teeth furiously and called a subordinate. "Go to the Blue Pine Hall where Crash is, immediately. Find out why the butler changed his mind." The subordinate, however, revealed that they could not go to the mansion. Crash's butler, Ariad, sealed the entrance, saying he would not let anyone enter the Blue Pine Hall, not even the head of the family. As Verokin went insane, Crash was cultivating the power of the grimoire. Amid Aura's training, he recalled the rankings. There are several levels in the mastery of Aura: Aura Emperor, Aura Master, Aura Specialist, and Aura User, with the latter being the first stage, the state of someone who has just learned Aura. The second phase is Aura Specialist, the stage with the largest number of corresponding users and the dividing line that separates ordinary people from geniuses. Crash had just reached the realm of ordinary people, while Charlotte, who was only 2 years older than him, was almost at the level of Aura Master, her talent being extraordinarily impressive. But even Charlotte, that unprecedented monster, would become helpless in the face of world destruction. Crash found himself pondering. Compared to Charlotte, I am still at the initial level of Aura Specialist. Can I really protect the world at this pace? The image of the old Crash from his past life emerged before the new young man. We won't know unless we try, right? There's no need to lament. Before the regression, we couldn't even use Aura due to the curses, but now it's different. Even if I can't compare to Charlotte, I can grow with the grimoire left by failures like us. Both, being the same person, smiled with confidence. I can become much stronger. That's enough for now. Days passed and Crash left the library. The butler was there to greet him with a towel. Congratulations on entering the realm of Specialist. While wiping the sweat, Crash told him not to get emotional over such little news and curious, asked why he was there. The butler revealed that his fiancée, Lady Bianca Harden Hearts, had come to the Blue Pine Hall. Bianca was known as the White Demon. She was the master who became a servant to the world invaders and tried to destroy the world they lived in. It was she who defeated one of the 10 strongest in the sky to earn such a title. However, at that moment, Bianca was just the youngest daughter of the family. Harden Hearts. He looked out the window and saw the girl with whom he had a political marriage. The Harden Hearts family, rulers of the North, could rid themselves of a useless failure while still gaining connections with the stronger Martial house. The nursery recognized her. We are both being used by our families. In fact, I had business with Bianca anyway that would be convenient for her to come here. Bianca Harden Hearts, the youngest daughter of the Harden Hearts family, rulers of the North, had her mother affected by a global erosion curse even before she was born. Thus, Bianca came into the world with a curse called Snowdoll, which left her without emotions. Curses that strike the soul cannot be broken, not even by curse breakers. And with a contaminated body, she also could not make a contract with a lord. Born in exchange for her mother's life, Bianca was treated coldly by the Harden Hearts family. Thinking a bit, Crash wondered if Bianca hated him. He hoped he wouldn't have trouble stealing Bianca's curse. He needed it, for the Snowdoll was the necessary curse to control the extreme blood immersion gone awry. Seeing that he was only in shorts, Crash realized he couldn't receive Bianca that way. The butler volunteered to prepare some clothes for him. Crash thanked him and asked, "Yes, please do that. Also, let her in and ask her to wait inside." 5 months ago, Crash had quarreled with Bianca and kicked her out. "You only care about the power of the Valheim. Family, stop pretending to be my fiancé." The young woman, for her part, wanted to leave, but was expelled. "My dear daughter, for the Harden Hearts family to survive, we must rely on the Valheim. At least you have a pretty face. Use that to win over their youngest son." They were placing the fate of the Harden Hearts family on the young woman's shoulders. Despite having no emotions, Bianca was still able to perceive that they were lying when they treated her kindly. Even with her family pushing her into a political marriage, she preferred it not to be with a sharp-tongued, pessimistic loser. While at Crash's house, she had decided to be the one to say no to the marriage. As soon as she entered the living room, where she met Bianca, Crash forced a smile. "I can't believe I served such hot tea knowing you hate it, Miss Cat Tongue. I'll talk to the maid later." Bianca remained silent as he looked out the window, wondering if they should take a walk in the garden, where there were many flowers to see. Bianca agreed, and on the way, Crash asked Kiara to prepare some cookies for them to take to the garden. Leading the way, Crash asked if the trip had been difficult for her, but was answered, "Either way, we will get married. After all, it's nice to spend some time together." Smiling typically Crash, he commented that she didn't sound like a bride, but rather like someone speaking to a commander. Walking behind Crash, Bianca observed him and thought, "You're still so rigid. When we met, your eyes were so piercing, but today you seem like a completely different person. I never told you I like macadamia cookies, yet somehow you knew." Upon arriving at the garden, the protagonist placed his hands on his hips and enjoyed the atmosphere, but was soon questioned by Bianca. "Are you really Crash?" The two glanced at each other, and the young man brought his hand to his head, sighing as he released a sinister intention. "Do I really seem that different from before?" And Bianca, sensing the energy he emitted, slightly bowed, apologizing for offending him, intimidated. However, that wasn't his intention. Crash's memories of that time were vague. He didn't remember how he behaved around Bianca. He only remembered that this expression on her face was the same expression she had that day when she appeared in front of the Arctic Pavilion. Deciding to tread carefully, Crash made up an excuse for his changed demeanor.
"I can't blame you for thinking that way, Bianca.
Recently, I made a deal with a lord. This made her understand, and she congratulated him. The crush continued, revealing that he had a proposal to make to her. Bianca became curious and soon thought he would do something arrogant. "Wait, do you want to break the engagement?" The crush was startled by her thought. He also understood that she did not want to marry someone like him, and that she herself would want to end the engagement. Seeing the lack of confidence in the young man, Bianca interrupted him. "I am your fiancé, Crush, and that's not going to change." The crush was surprised, as these were words he had never heard before. Slightly flustered, he cleared his throat. "Yes, right. Anyway, let's get straight to the point. With my new power, I want your Snowdoll curse." The proposal was surprising to her, as even the best ritualists had been unable to undo her curse. Revealing he wanted her curse, he commented, "I need to use this curse. If you give it to me, I will grant you a wish, anything you want, even to end the engagement." A situation where not having emotions worked to his advantage. Bianca knew that the Valheim family despised the crush for being a failure. If that were the case, he must have separated from his relatives. Perhaps that was the reason he was always so down, to the point of wanting to erase his emotions. Bianca analyzed the situation and remembered something the philosopher had told her. When people reach their mental limit, their minds go out of control, and when this happens, they may take their own lives or suddenly act in an extremely kind manner, as if they have changed their personality. These moments are dangerous. They are signs of imminent collapse. If someone close to you ends up this way, Bianca, stay by his side. Bianca held Crush's calloused hands and spoke in a sweet tone, though emotionless. "It's okay, Crush. You can get through this. You don't need a curse. You just need to control your emotions." The young man blushed tremendously, as the young girl seemed to have misunderstood, and Bianca continued without letting him explain. I will visit frequently from now on. If I ask my father, I can probably move nearby too. Alarmed, the crush asked if she actually didn't hate him so much that she wanted to break off the engagement. The young girl continued to hold on to him. However, maybe I don't like you, but I can't abandon someone in this state, even though Bianca was someone who acted without thinking. Crash understood there was a big misunderstanding. As she didn't want to give up her curse, Crash still planned to test his ability. He used the Black Hood, trying to steal the ability of the Snow Doll. A condition for breaking the lock was generated. A first mission emerged: become friends with Bianca. A double lock was something complicated, as she had possessed the curse since birth. She was considered part of the young girl's body, something of immense value. The mission was still more challenging than just marrying Bianca, since she lacked emotions and was not the type to show interest in anything. Still, sending her back to Hardened Hearts would only expedite the moment when she would become an enemy of the world itself. Crash decided, I will keep her close and look for a chance to unlock her. If I can stop her and obtain the Snow Doll, I will be solving 2 problems in one move. Thus, he decided to go along with what Bianca said. He began to hold her hand, claiming to be happy to see her more often. Bianca warned that she would talk to her father and left in the late afternoon. The crush hoped that Bianca would not return for another month, and during that time, he planned to read more grimoires. However, the next day, several moving boxes arrived at Pine Blue Mansion. Carriages and carts came one after another. Bianca held up her dress and greeted the crush while revealing, from today on, I will live here at Pine Blue Hall. Please, take care of me. Upon hearing this, Crash nearly fainted. A few days later, when he woke up in the morning, Crash saw a young girl with white hair beside him. As he got up, he wondered why Bianca had slept in his bed once again. He yawned while getting up, unintentionally waking Bianca, who was still drooling, sleepy, and confusedly asked, Why are you here? But it was he who should have asked her that. Returning to a secluded area, Crash cultivated the aura with a sword in his lap. Some time had passed. It had been a few months since he started living with Bianca. On the day she arrived at the mansion, he was shocked. Are you already moving in? Bianca revealed that her family had given her permission. Crash realized that, perhaps because she lacked emotions, her attachment to her family was weak, and she truly did not feel that kind of sentiment. Regardless, it would be more practical, as he wanted to befriend her. All of that had happened in the summer, but winter had already arrived. The year was about to end, meaning the opening of Yahello Academy was near. The institution had been founded through the cooperation of the 4 great kingdoms and the empire to train talents capable of resisting global erosion. It admitted students aged 15 to 20. Before Crash's regression, the academy produced countless members of the Blue Generation, many with overpowered abilities. Just imagining it made Crash grind his teeth. It was because of those bastards. Knowing everyone's weaknesses, he now believed he could steal their abilities. Once he got to the academy, he intended to steal each and every one of them. How would he turn 14? The following year, Crash would have another year to prepare and grow stronger. However, his talent had begun to become a limiter. The grimoires could only take him to the initial stage of Aura Specialist. To overcome this barrier, he would need to steal the curse of the Snow Doll and learn the extreme blood immersion. Crash met Bianca, who was reading outside, waiting. Bianca had been following him since the summer, not allowing him to be alone. She followed him like a baby bird following its mother. Crash wondered how much time he would need to spend before she finally saw him as a friend. As he pondered his concerns, the butler approached, informing him that an invitation had arrived from the Star Sanctuary. The Star Sanctuary was a formal gathering held once a year for the young nobles of the kingdom of Styron. Almost everyone attended, unless they had special circumstances. It was an opportunity to socialize and build connections. Remembering what it was about, he thanked Ariad. Since he had holed up in the Blue Pine Hall before the regression, Crash had few memories of that event. However, he knew that a certain person would be there and might help him fulfill his promise to Ariad. Thus, the butler could take care of his daughter. Crash instructed the butler to notify that he would be attending the event and that Bianca would accompany him. When the butler walked away, Bianca warned Crash that the people who attended the Star Sanctuary would probably criticize him. He was aware of this fact, and that Bianca would also be targeted for it. He asked if it would be better for her not to go, but Bianca insisted that she would go. After all, protecting one's partner is the duty of fiancés. Crash didn't want her to think like a fiancé, but to express her honest opinion. Seeing the sympathetic look Crash gave her, Bianca once again remembered how good he had been to her in recent months. Even without reason, he conveyed a sense of warmth. No one in the Harden Hearts family had ever treated her kindly before. He was so gentle that she could hardly remember the awful first meeting. Because of this, she no longer disliked Crash. She made her decision. I will go with you, not as a fiancé, but as myself. When the day of the event arrived, they set off at sunset. In the distance, they spotted a great castle, the Star Dragon Pavilion. It was the most famous place in the region. By the size, Crash wondered how much money the one who built the castle had. While he spoke to himself, Bianca lay on the bench, resting her head on his leg. The nobles of that world were respected because they fought against global erosion in place of the common people, and yet many of them didn't even train. They just partied every night. Still, they were called the future of Steron. Upon arriving at the castle, Crash wondered how many decent people could exist in the sanctuary of the star. With their arrival, their names were announced, and soon murmurs began to spread. Wherever Crash looked, they were surrounded by false nobles. Soon, a loud voice from a young man was heard. Valheim! It seems someone interesting has appeared. Sitting on a red couch was a young man. Next to him, a woman who looked more like a bodyguard. Sitting on the floor was a second young man with feline features. It seemed that real nobles were also present, some of whom would join the blue generation in the future. The young man with feline appearance was Balak Hogma, the young tiger. The woman with red eyes was Casada Elfin Amelia, and lastly, the wood archer, Annex Greaser. One day the three would be called the Triad of Steron. Crash simply ignored them, as he knew the reason they were interested in him. Charlotte Crash remembered when her sister, wearing a long red dress, visited him. Listen, Crash, when I wore a dress like this, everyone came to me, but none of them could defeat me in a duel. Sanctuary of the Stars? More like Sanctuary of Garbage. On that day, she had sworn never to go to the event again. Judging by the atmosphere of the place, Crash imagined that his sister had already caused quite a scene. At that moment, Bianca lightly tugged at Crash's shirt, telling him not to mind what people said. However, that wasn't what he was doing. He didn't understand why Bianca didn't seem to care about being insulted. And instead, he was worried about him, looking around. Crash expected someone to show up and couldn't believe that person was still absent. It was then that an announcement was made. Lord Darling Dunferlion has arrived. He was the strangest among all the eccentrics, the flamboyant alchemist, Lord Darling Dunferlion. One day, when Crash found himself covered in wounds, Darling Dunferlion approached him, touching every part of his body and analyzing how he could make him his lab rat for studies on erosion-type curses. Darling pinched Crash's cheeks without letting him speak. Aren't you going to respond? Then I will just start. The Flash was startled to see the young man bringing his mouth close to his face and stopped him with a punch. The name of the alchemist lord was Darling Dunferlion, the man who would one day be called the King of Alchemy. The young alchemist bounced into the hall, greeting everyone. Young women loved him because he always seemed radiant, knowing how much Darling liked to be flamboyant. Crash knew he wouldn't miss the opportunity. He ran to a table, grabbed a tower of sweets, and handed it to Bianca, who started eating them and asked her to wait for him. When Darling Dunferlion saw Crash approaching, he felt he had seen him before. As he got closer, Crash introduced himself. I am Crash Valheim. Upon hearing the name, Darling realized the young man resembled Charlotte. His eyes sparkled as he asked if Crash was Charlotte's little brother and excitedly inquired if Crash needed something or if he was just captivated by his beauty. Crash was straightforward. I heard you've been investigating the world of invaders. Said like that, does that interest you? Seeing the arrogance in Crash's words, Darling warned him that he would regret it if he wasn't good enough. As they went to a training room, Darling asked Crash's age. The long-haired young man grabbed 2 swords, while the protagonist replied that he was 13 years old. Despite Crash being young, Darling felt that his attitude was that of someone older. The protagonist sighed as this was true. Still, with not much time, he asked if they could get straight to the point. Unexpectedly, Darling threw one of the swords to him and immediately attacked. Despite being startled, Crash blocked the blow as he had finally found Charlotte's little brother. Darling wanted to test his skills. As they crossed swords, Darling told Crash to say what he wanted to talk about. Pressured once again, the protagonist turned the tables with a counterattack. Darling was pushed back and was surprised. I heard you were a failure, with no talents or skills. When their swords clashed again, Crash made Darling's sword tremble and looked him in the eyes. I may seem like that, but I train every day using secret techniques against an alchemist. Made Darling feel he was wrong. To shake his emotions, he revealed his research on curse neutralization. I could help you with that. Outraged, Darling resumed his attack with more intensity, questioning what Crash knew about alchemy to think he could help. Crash moved quickly, and when Darling raised his sword, he approached and pointed the blade at his face. Crash revealed he knew about the alchemist's work. You're working to neutralize curses of global erosion, which even curse breakers can't undo, using other curses to cancel them out. The alchemist recoiled, jumping back, and was questioned. You want to become a top-class alchemist and prove your theory, right? Releasing a dark power, Crash asserted he would help the alchemist with the research. I will help you with my ability that can steal curses. Seeing the aura and the mark on Crash's palm, Darling Denver Lion was taken aback, as he had always believed that Crash possessed no skills, that he was a failure. Darling believed that if that were true, it would be perfect. He wanted to hear the proposal. What price do I need to pay for collaboration? Darling asked, shocked. Wait, you want me to become your boyfriend? Crash dismissed such a ridiculous possibility and revealed his price. I will receive several curses in the future. I need you to create a potion that can suppress those curses. The young alchemist was confident in his specialty of potion making. Stealing abilities alone was not enough for Crash. Not even the Ezra generation with its trickster-level powers managed to prevent the apocalypse. That's why he thought that, as a failure, he had no choice but to use any means possible. Having heard that Crash had lost all motivation when compared to Charlotte, Darling realized it was a lie. On one side was an overwhelming genius, on the other, a stubborn misfit, and both were brothers. Darling shivered completely and asked for permission to ask a question. Are you going to enroll in the newly created La Helene Academy? Crash replied confidently. Of course I will. He was going there to steal abilities. Darling shivered even more, feeling tingles all over his body. He bounced excitedly. Perfect. I will make potions or whatever you need. If it involves curses, even better. Before that, Crash stated he had a favor to ask. He inquired if the young man knew of the discoloration disease and requested that Darling Danforlion create a cure for it. Darling was shocked by the request and explained that the disease was incurable. However, in his past life, he had created a cure. Convincingly, Crash extended his closed fist. Can you do that? Darling felt his pride was at stake and accepted Crash's fist bump, sealing the deal. Crash asked him to send the cure to the Blue Pine Mansion when it was ready, and Darling stated he would personally deliver it. Something crossed Crash's mind. He asked, "You like my sister, right?" Lovingly, Darling revealed to adore Charlotte, and that was what confused Crash. So why do you keep saying there's an empty accent beside you and asking about boyfriends? Darling smirked, mocking Crush. You're still too young to understand. I just also like boys. Crush was startled and immediately ran away, screaming. But I don't. After managing to escape from Darling, Crash walked through the hall until he saw people gathering in an area. Upon arriving, he saw a young man gripping Bianca's wrist tightly. Bianca's eyes met his, and Crash immediately moved with a kick that struck the bastard holding her, sending him flying against a table. He saw Crash Valheim approach with a dark look, trying to drag my fiancé away by force. What the hell do you think you're doing? The young man placed his hand on his cheek, reacting to Crash's blow. Force! Crash questioned what he was doing, and the young man quickly revealed, I was following the orders of Lady Claudia. Everyone was shocked, as she was the second princess. Crash questioned if he was talking about Claudia from the Sterone Kingdom, and the young man quickly confirmed, fearfully, Yes, Lady Claudia. The second princess told me to bring Lady Bianca to her, but Lady Bianca resisted. So I tried to take her by force. There was nothing else to do. It was a royal order. Bianca might be the youngest daughter of the Lords of the North, from the Heart and Hearts family, but her curse made her despised among the nobles. And that princess, who usually just played with her followers, to call her specifically didn't seem normal. Crash immediately knew there had to be a reason behind it. There had to be someone else connected to this. It could only be Anix, the Wood Archer, someone who was obsessed with Charlotte. After being humiliated at the Star Sanctuary, he couldn't shake off his twisted mix of hatred and admiration for her, and that finally drove him mad. He knew that he would never defeat Charlotte with his own power, so he aimed for Crash when he noticed that Nyx was dragging Bianca into her troubles. Crash grew even darker. Unexpectedly, he decided to go, but corrected himself. I won't see the princess, but I will see Nyx. The young man on the ground was confused by the change in whom Crash would address. Seeing him confused, Crash taunted, You serve the princess but don't even know who ordered her to do this. Incredible. Your instincts are really slow. Crash and Bianca went off together. Curious, Crash wondered why Bianca had refused to go. He thought she would leave him and marry Nyx, but she didn't seem to want to do that. With much curiosity, Crash asked why Bianca hadn't followed the young man sent by the princess. Bianca revealed, in a clear voice, Because you told me to wait for him. After a second of surprise, Crash stroked Bianca's hair. You did well. Balak Hogman was waiting in front of a door and approached. Crash upon seeing that he had arrived. The protagonist mentioned he wanted to see Nyx and found out she was already waiting for him. Balak was someone Crash knew, a talented fighter with 2 swords, but no one knew what he was thinking. Therefore, Crash didn't want to get involved with him. However, the opposite could not be said. Balak held his shoulder, asking them to fight. Crash reminded him that fighting was prohibited in the Sanctuary of the Stars, but Balak had already fought against Charlotte and wanted to face someone else. Crash recalled that Balak had lasted a bit longer against Charlotte than Nyx, so his aura mastery must be slightly higher. Balak was strong, even among specialists. His intuition for fights was sharp. Although Crash wanted to avoid a fight before meeting Nyx, Balak's gaze showed that he would not back down easily. Crash responded lightly. All right. Instantly, Balak attacked him with a punch, which Crash dodged with his fist charged with energy. Crash counterattacked, but the young tiger jumped back. Crash launched a cross kick at Balak, hitting him, but he saw a quick counterattack approaching, even faster than Balak. Crash struck him with a closed fist and threw him to the ground, causing him a lot of pain. Crash let out a slight sigh, winning the fast duel. Balak got up, complaining, "You really didn't hold back." The protagonist scratched his neck, remembering that the young man had been the one to eagerly challenge him. Balak jumped, asking, "Come on. One more round, I can grab my weapons this time." Crash, however, questioned him. "Can you really still stand?" At that moment, Balak collapsed. Bianca, curious, asked what Crash had done. He revealed he had used a secret technique from the Valheim, Short Strike, a technique created by forgotten descendants of the Valheim that provides maximum power at the shortest distance. If the conditions are right, it can pierce armor and directly hit internal organs. It was one of the techniques Crash managed to save from the Blue Pine Mansion when it was burned down in his previous life. This was a technique that had helped him survive countless battles, his most reliable move. Balak wouldn't wake up for a while, so they moved on. Upon opening the doors, the duo found Kassad and Anix. The young woman, upon seeing Balak fallen behind Bianca and Crash, ran to him worried. Anix expressed his surprise at seeing Balak defeated and questioned, "Wasn't your plan to leave him there so he could attack me?" Changing the subject, Crash revealed he knew of his plans. "Since you tried to use the second princess to lure me, I came here to see you personally." Curiously, Anix asked how he had discovered such a thing. "Strange, you're not quite what the rumors say. Could those rumors be false?" Crash didn't care much. "If it's about the rumor of me being a failure, then that one is true." Indeed. Crash then unleashed his dark energy and warned, "The rumors will change from now on." Internally, what he planned to do was steal Anix's ability for himself. Faced with the challenge, Anix fell silent. The protagonist remembered the past, and Anix. They had entered the academy together, and after spending so much time side by side, Crash managed to understand him. Anix had only stayed by his side because it was beneficial, and that benefit was quite specific. One day, when Crash was hanging off a cliff, above several monsters, Anix appeared to whom Crash pleaded for help. However, Anix had something else in mind. "If people found out it was my fault we fell into a trap, I would lose my position in the Blue Generation, right? But if I am the only survivor, no one will ever know the truth." Surprised by Anix's thought, he reminded him, "If they know it was your fault, you will be expelled." Anix didn't want to backtrack. "Don't worry, I'll put all the blame on you. Everyone hates you anyway, so this will blow over quickly. It will all disappear." Anix smirked mockingly and thanked Crash for being a useful friend. This infuriated him, as he knew Anix only got close to him because of Charlotte. Even that situation had been caused because he couldn't stop thinking about her wedding. With a look of disgust, Anix revealed the true reason for wanting to rid himself of Crash. "You have no abilities, but you are always ready to twist people's words. How can Charlotte get married? A line would be drawn between them." Anix decided it was better that way. Charlotte was getting married, but he felt it was like a funeral for his love. While Anix was lost in his thoughts, Crash lost strength. His hand slipped, and he was falling toward the monsters when Arthur saved him and invited him to his team, starting yet another misfortune. When Arthur exposed Anix, he was expelled from the Blue Generation. After that, he even tried to marry the princess, something that irritated Nyx. He looked at the protagonist, mocking him and his sister. His way of speaking is just like Charlotte's. Curiously, Crash was warned not to mention his sister's name. Casually, shadows appeared around him as he advanced. "We may be similar, but by fighting with me, you will see the difference." Crash's punch was blocked by a thick plant root. He used the tree for support to spin his body and tried to kick, but that was also blocked. The aerial roots grabbed Crash by the leg and lifted him up. Several others appeared, trying to attack him from all angles. Luckily, he broke free, retreating near Bianca. Crash sighed, seeing how Nyx continued to be a problem. The young man who possessed the secret technique of the Greiser family aerial plant style, scoffed, "Is that all you've got? You can use a weapon if you want." This was a unique technique that strengthened and controlled plant life through aura. Combined with his recovery ability, he could multiply plants and extend the limits of the technique. Crash accepted the challenge and picked up a stick. "I'll use your own plants," Anix challenged Crash to try. "Let's see if you block the next attack with that little twig." Crash moved quickly, dodging all the roots. Anix was shocked, as although Charlotte could do the same, Crash was supposed to be just a failure. Crash was confident that Anix was not a worthy opponent. Having seen his abilities countless times, he knew each of his movements. As he got close enough, Crash taunted, still thinking of Charlotte. Anix felt that Crash was going too far. He used all of his recovery power to make the plants grow. A giant root struck the balcony and made Crash retreat. A large wooden monster had emerged, a celestial wood titan which Nyx commanded to intimidate. "Watch what you say to me," Crash, smiling. He completed the invocation of the wooden titan. Kasaj hurriedly asked Anix to stop, or the worst could happen. The wooden titan moved, attempting to punch Crash, an action that would strike the entire balcony. The protagonist closed his eyes, recalling something from the Blue Pine Library, the finest grimoire he had found, written by an ancestor who wielded his sword daily until he turned 80. He was not talented, just an ordinary man who practiced relentlessly. His final grimoire was short, merely notes on wielding a sword, but it described a state of unity between the self and the blade, a realm unattainable by technique alone. However, Crash had been pushed to such a limit numerous times by the curses. The sword had become him, and he had become the sword. A calm energy began to rise around the branch held by Crash. As he wielded the branch, the energy was released, and the great titan was cleaved in two, like wood being chopped. The sword was simple, yet truly profound. Kasaj and Anix were shocked to see the wooden giant fall amidst the dust raised by the attack. Crash let go of the small twig and warned, "Never try to seem arrogant in front of me again, got it?" Anix fell to his knees just as the wooden titan was falling. Crash realized he had gone too far. Earlier, he had planned to hold back a bit just to make the theft of the skill easier, but he ended up going all out and now could hardly move. Crash trembled, unable to speak properly. Bianca approached to hold him while Darling ran towards them. However, as Bianca held Crash, she gripped him tightly, almost causing him to faint. Darling tried to intervene and took control of the situation. The alchemist carried Crash on his back, passing through the ballroom, while rumors spread that the useless failure of the Valheim family had defeated Anix. The Darling heard the rumors, but that didn't matter, whether because of recklessness or arrogance. When Crash woke up, he would be famous. However, remembering the expression in Anix's eyes, Darling wished the young man wasn't planning to do something later. Leaving the castle, Darling asked Crash to stay alive to help him with his research. Days went by and Crash resumed training. The wooden dummies were sliced by the sword, showing that he had regained his energy. The attack Crash had used had cost him dearly. If he kept wielding the sword, he could have ended up in an even worse situation. Fortunately, Bianca brought him back home. The problem had been not being able to steal Anix's ability. He now had two ideas. The first option was to unlock the lock with the Black Hood, and the second was to make the target doubt the worth of his own ability. Crash planned to use the second plan, demotivating Anix. When the sword attack knocked down the wooden titan, doubts began to arise in Anix's mind for losing to the failure he had always despised. Even though it would take some time, the protagonist knew he would be able to acquire the recovery ability that Anix possessed. He planned to surpass all the first-year geniuses at the academy. To do so, he dedicated each of his days to training. Upon returning to the mansion, Crash met with the butler Ario, who informed him that Lord Verikin had arrived at the Blue Pine Mansion. The patience of Crash's older brother had run out. The young man had already refused his brother's messages several times. There was nothing more to be done. He instructed the butler to allow Verokin in. Bianca brought a cup of water for Crash, who noticed the strange expression on her face. There was a reason for her dissatisfaction. Crash smelled bad. He sniffed his own shirt. It seemed that the aura exuded impurities from his body, while the stench of decay accumulated. Since Crash didn't want to take a shower, as he would return to training, Bianca told him to keep his distance from her. "What scared you? Are you giving orders to your fiancé now?" The crush intimidated the young woman like an even larger bird. "You've become arrogant, Bianca." She immediately ran away while he chased after her. Although Bianca sometimes seemed stubborn, the crush recognized it as part of her strength. The people the crush met before the regression would likely be staring at him coldly, especially Arthur. The crush hated to admit it, but aside from the end of the journey, Arthur had always been someone vigilant, a true hero. While the crush was lost in thought, an irritated voice approached, flirting with his wife. "It suits you, Verokin. The third child of the family had entered the mansion. The protagonist retorted back to his mockery. Even heroes need breaks sometimes. The hero was surprised, as his brother always avoided making eye contact with him, out of fear. This made him wonder if the rumors were true. Changing the subject, the crush commented, "I was surprised you found time to visit Blue Pine Hall despite being so busy. I heard that Yahello Academy will accept students based on exam results rather than status. You'd better start preparing too, brother." Hearing such words come from a smiling crush, Verokin felt disgusted. "He's mocking me! Even the strongest empire feared the Valheim family, to the extent they didn't dare touch Starin. The house operated on a completely different level, and Verokin was pure blood of Valheim. He couldn't believe the Yahello." Crush was suggesting he study for an entrance exam. What a funny joke. Well, I bet it's understandable for a plebeian to worry. The crush averted his gaze, mocking with sarcasm. "Yeah, I guess so." Verokin swallowed his irritation and returned to the main point, the reason for his visit. "I came to deliver an order. We are going to the Jarlac Mountains." The news caught the crush by surprise. For missions like these were not mandatory until they turned 15. Veroquinho announced that he would be his guardian and teased my brother, who had defeated Nyx. He isn't scared, right? Crash decided to go. In the end, he was more accustomed to fighting erosion than living peacefully. Even if it were a trap, he would be ready. Bianca approached, asking where they were going. Crash informed her that he would take care of an erosion problem and asked her not to follow him. Bianca agreed, with him, but I logically wouldn't say sending a 13-year-old to deal with an erosion event is absurd. Verokin felt attacked by the words and cursed his cursed girl. Crash stepped in front of him, warning, "She is my fiancée." Surely my good brother wouldn't take the words of a 12-year-old girl seriously. The two then faced each other, and losing patience, Verokin walked away. Crash patted Bianca's head, praising her for what she had done, even though she didn't exactly know what. He reassured her about not knowing the details, and Bianca, in return, requested, "Don't faint again, okay?" Crash followed Veroquinho to the front door, bidding farewell. "I'll be back soon." Global erosion, a phenomenon in which our world is literally invaded by another. Sometimes creatures from another world appear. Other times the environment begins to change and suffer erosion, continuing to spread to other regions. The very area can transform into a completely different world. Upon reaching the Jarlac Mountains, the group encountered a swamp. Veroquin revealed he had heard that this was a level 3 erosion and asked if the purification team had said anything. A subordinate informed that they were already working to find the creature causing the erosion and neutralize it. With a mask covering his mouth and nose, Flash looked around. Against a rank 3 erosion, a squad of intermediate-level expert knights should handle it without problems. Additionally, while Veroquin might seem calm, he was an advanced specialist. Then, I should be able to defeat the core creature easily. Verokin approached Crash, claiming he had brought him along to gain field experience. Smiling while pretending to be excited, Crash nodded, but internally scoffed. Who does he think he's talking to? The only reason I followed you here was for one thing, to test a temporary method of controlling the uncontrollable. The hunting group brandished their swords and energies, chasing the endless giant flies, while many ran around randomly. Crash warned, "These beasts don't have heads, but they do have teeth. If they bite you, you'll get sick. Keep an aura around your body." One of the team members was impressed by Crash's tip. His eyes sparkled as he asked if he had fought against world erosion before. Crash just remembered he was only 13. It was strange enough for him to be there. Internally, Verokin was furious, unable to believe how calm Crash could be. The first time he had gone to an erosion area, at 15, his pride was crushed. Still, Crash was even giving tips to the knights. Crash looked at his brother and smiled with a mix of pride and mockery. Verokin was going increasingly mad, imagining the possibility of Crash becoming as strong as Charlotte and surpassing him too. Verokin began to wield his own sword against all the monsters, venting his rage. Crash noticed his brother's change of attitude and walked over to him, warning that they should be close to where the core creature was. A red aura emerged at their feet, indicating they were entering another territory. Verokin smiled, asserting they were lucky. This would make things easier. However, Crash warned, that's why we need to stay even more alert. If there are no creatures here, the core creature might be stronger than we expected. The knights heard Crash and grew apprehensive. He took the lead, shouting for everyone not to lose their composure over something like this. The rest of you, don't let the words of a child shake you. It's just rank 3. Deal with it quickly so we can go home. Crash left his brother and the others behind and decided to pursue the real reason he had come on the mission. He stopped abruptly, eyes widening as he felt an even stronger global erosion energy. Crash removed the mask from his face. He began to absorb all the energy. He was sucking the air and aura in, absorbing them. Although nervous, Crash's eyes soon turned red. He vomited a thick scarlet liquid. The knights ran toward him as they saw him collapse suddenly, while Verokin mocked. "You tried too hard for your first time." Crash managed to regroup. The erosion energy was like a powerful toxin. It was natural for him to be in that state. Still, he forced himself to endure the pain. He had learned extreme blood immersion precisely for this moment. The first step, following the grimoire, was to mix his aura with the erosion energy. The aura flowed endlessly, never stopping, like a powerful river. If he let the erosion energy emerge in that river, eventually his aura would blend with it, creating colors that had never existed before. Crash's pupil became dark like the night, with a red dot in its center. He began to experience loss of control. Anyone with a weak mind would go insane going through that. Crash then used a secret technique. After the era of Damaris, it was believed that the Blue Pine Mansion had vanished from history until a blind ancestor discovered the hidden library. One day, unable to read the grimoires, he sealed the door again, and to ensure that no one like him would ever be trapped in ignorance, left a grimoire inside the library. The name of that secret art was hypersensory perception through aura, sixth sense. At that moment, Crash could only extend it as far as the length of his own fingers, but even that was enough to clearly understand what was passing through him. Crash's eyes shone with an intense silver when he smiled. The place where he stepped was no longer completely dominated by chaos. The mental storm began to calm down, and Crash overcame it. With the sixth sense, it was just a temporary solution. However, as long as he continued to absorb the energy of the erosion, the damage could happen at any moment, which meant he still needed Bianca's snowdoll curse. But stabilizing the technique, even if for a moment, left him satisfied. He felt he had taken another step. While he celebrated internally, a dark pressure rose in the surroundings. Crash looked back and saw what appeared to be a long neck with a human face approaching. That being had its eyes closed and opened them suddenly. Throughout its body, filled with chaotic mass, several other human faces resided. At the end, there was a single, even more monstrous face, capable of devouring a human in one bite. That was the monster at the core of the erosion. One of the faces with long hair opened its eyes, screaming madly. The shrill sound penetrated the minds of everyone nearby. The monster rose on its paws, and its main head, eyeless with just a gigantic mouth, directed itself towards those closest. The warning cry sounded quickly. "Everyone prepare for battle!" Verokin and the knights raised their swords, getting ready. The young man leading them channeled his aura, igniting his own body and the sword he held. Everyone was impressed by Lord Verokin's Ignis ability. Beyond beautiful, it was devastating. Crash faced Ignis, the ability that had burned his arm in his past life before the regression. Verokin had become a person, completely unbalanced, wondering who the brother was in that life. Crash wished he hadn't changed. The monster of erosion attacked the first human, creating a hand that, as it approached his body, stole his face. The faceless man fell to the ground while the knights assembled to protect him, but soon even the lords began to have trouble against the 8 arms that the monster had created. The newbies were in an even worse situation. It was bad enough that some wanted to give up, but Verokin shouted, "Push forward!" He himself advanced, wielding flames on his sword and launching them to cut the arms of the otherworldly monster. The faces that the monster had stolen and housed in its body began to burn along with all the mass of the beast. Verokin shouted, raising the morale of the group, "Don't give up! I'll create an opening!" Everyone cheered and celebrated upon seeing Lord Verokin proudly leading them. He wondered if Crash was watching him, but seeing him disappear made him question whether his brother had been caught by the monster. Verokin found him behind a rock, not looking at him, but at the creature of 1,000 faces. Enduring the damage caused by the fire, the creature shed red tears. All the faces on its body wept gloomily. That was not normal, and it alerted Verokin. He quickly recoiled upon feeling an impossible pressure. Facing such power, he knew he needed to defeat the being of 1,000 faces before it became even stronger. He spun his body and launched a fire slash at the monster, but even with aura on his attacks, it caused no damage. He immediately shouted, "Knights of Valheim, listen up! Attack before this turns into something worse!" There was no response, which infuriated Verokin. "You call yourselves knights, being cowards!" However, when he turned around, he saw the knights standing still. Their faces had disappeared. That was impossible to believe, as they had never even touched the being of 1,000 faces. It was then that Verokin touched his own face, feeling it begin to disappear as well. The monster was already before him, staring with its hairy face and giant mouth. Suddenly it began to rain and thunder. The swamp flooded, and Verokin knew this would be his end. He tried to move to attack the monster, but the thousand faces extended a hand with a malevolent energy, making everything seem slower. Verokin wondered what was happening. He considered himself the strongest in Valheim, but the ghost of Charlotte that haunted him pounded in his mind. You are pathetic. That's why your little sister surpassed you, being 3 years younger. You pretended, lost all the knights under your command, and fled like a coward to save yourself. That is why you will perish as the failure that you are. The monster raced toward him on its many legs, quickly closing the distance. Verokin tried to draw his sword, but the creature's paw blocked it before he could wield it. Everything seemed to fade away for him. Soon, however, he felt his body being pulled. With half of his face still remaining, he looked down and saw Crash carrying him. Why are you? Crash displayed a broad smile upon seeing his brother awaken. After dragging him behind a large rock, he explained that he had been watching the battle from a distance. I saw you being swallowed by the swamp during the Thousand Faces attack, so I avoided its gaze, pulled you out, and brought you here. Verokin pushed his legs against Crash, insisting that he could walk on his own. However, Crash asked if he could truly manage in his condition. Verokin looked down and saw one of his arms in a destroyed state, holding a sword. Crash asked if his brother really didn't need help. Verokin gritted his teeth and took the sword for himself. But as soon as he tried to get up, he heard the roar of the Thousand Faces and felt alarmed. Are we still near the lair? How far are we from where we were attacked? Crash did not know what to say. We walked for a while, but we did not reach the edge of the swamp. The field seemed to close in around us. Verokin understood what that meant. They could not escape until they defeated the mill faces. He fell to his knees, cursing the situation. Crash then revealed, actually, I have a final technique, one that Lady Charlotte taught me. It's because of her that I was able to fight on equal terms with Nyx in the Star Sanctuary. Verokin was surprised and wondered if Charlotte truly felt any affection for her brother. He asked if the technique could defeat the mill faces, and Crash confirmed, we cannot lose like the others in this erosion field, so I would like to try. Acknowledging that Verokin did not believe him, Crash pressed him. But you trust in Charlotte's strength, don't you? Verokin agreed that Charlotte was a genius. Rising to his feet, he warned, if you fail, it will be the end for both of us. Crash smiled mischievously and swore to his brother, don't worry, I won't fail. The rain continued to fall in the swamp, and as they hid among the bushes, Crash warned that the mill faces was approaching. Verokin prepared the Ignis as Crash requested, signaling that they could begin. Crash emerged from the thicket, moving into an open area. He released his own aura, imbuing it into the sword while closing his eyes. Verokin watched, astonished. All the surrounding energy was gathered into the sword. Verokin widened his one remaining eye, startled by the incredible focus. His brother possessed. He had never seen such a pure aura before. When Crash instructed him to combine the flames of Ignis with Charlotte's secret art, earlier he hadn't believed it would work, but now he saw with his own eyes the aura that Verokin had never mastered, no matter how hard he tried. Crash was managing to endure. The protagonist called for his brother and commanded him to use the Ignis. The flame created by Verokin directed itself towards the sword, imbuing it with fire. Just as surrounding Crash's body, Verokin saw Crash raise his sword as if he had a problem with the flames. The protagonist didn't insist on the matter. He didn't let it go. It seems you're going to make it in time after all. It seems like I won't need your help. Amidst Verokin's confusion, he saw flames being created by Crash, flames even more powerful than his. The sword gathered power that could truly eliminate the Mill Rostos in an instant. Verokin had lost the subordinates and barely survived, losing all the knights while becoming a shame. The possibility that Crash could actually defeat the Mill Rostos made Verokin realize that he could be even weaker than the one he called a failure. The monster approached, and as soon as he brandished the flaming sword, Crash split it in two. Verokin saw the monster being consumed rapidly. Within seconds, the swamp disappeared, and a common plain with resplendent sun revealed itself. Crash turned and greeted Verokin. Brother, it's done! Verokin couldn't believe that the monster had been eliminated so easily. He went mad and attacked Crash with a sword strike. The protagonist blocked the attack, which didn't even possess the flames Verokin tried to use. The young man realized that he could no longer use the power of Ignis. The dark Crash thanked him. Thank you, Verokin, for never changing the conditions to unlock the theft of Verokin's ability. They were easy. First, willingly deliver part of the Ignis to your opponent. Second, believe that the opponent can wield the Ignis better than you. And finally, the collapse of your pride. The moment Verokin transmitted the Ignis to Crash's sword, the power became his. The protagonist retaliated the attack he suffered with an even greater cut. Verokin couldn't dodge and was hit. Crash approached one of the pieces of the Mill Rostos monster, consumed by fire, and cut a piece of the charred flesh. He impaled the piece of meat with the sword and approached his brother with whom he conversed. "I used to want to get along with you and the others. But you said I wasn't welcome. Your constant hostility ensured that. Even so, I thought that just this once you would finally accept me as your brother." Crush had the brother eat the piece of meat while commenting. "Still, I clung to a faint hope that, since we are brothers, you would finally recognize me this time, but it seems you never had that option. To begin with, coming into contact with the meat of the mill faces made Verokeen lose the rest of his face while screaming and trembling. Crash remembered the day Verokeen had attacked him with flames. He was just like his brother was now, thrashing on the ground. Soon, Verokeen stopped moving. Crash looked up at the sky, from which light drops of rain were still falling on a small lake, and sighed. This is ironically a beautiful day. Soon, the news that Verokeen's entire unit had been annihilated reached the Valheim main estate. The erosion was reclassified as level 5. Around, it was said that a high-class specialist was needed to suppress it. While the family laid over the coffin, where they covered Verokeen's face, comments arose that if the young man hadn't sacrificed himself, Lord Crash wouldn't have survived either. Verokeen's relatives arrived in a fury, discovering that only the one they considered a failure had survived. The head butler of the Valheim family tried to calm them down, reminding them how honorable Verokeen's sacrifice had been. Don't waste his noble end. Outside the funeral hall, Crash glanced at the situation. Everyone had believed his testimony, and no one suspected the truth. Thanks to Verokeen, this mission yielded great results for Crash. He fully adapted to the extreme immersion in blood and confirmed that his sixth sense could partially control the resulting attack. And through Ignis, he obtained the power of black flames. Ignis could burn anything. So, when it touched the essence of the very erosion of the world, this was the result. The black flames were much more powerful than I expected. Made like a card up my sleeve, despite the sinister color of the flames, it was what Crash needed. Moreover, the problem that had to be solved in the main family was that an investigation into the abnormal phenomena in the eroded lands of the world would need to be submitted to understand them. Flash headed towards a large door and was granted entry. The protagonist held information that no one yet knew about the reason for global corrosion. It was all the work of the world invader. His true body sleeps in an endless dream, and he could only observe reality through his servants, the Immortals. The fact that they had already begun their activities meant that humans could encounter their undead subordinates at any moment. Soon, as Crash passed through the large door, he found himself in the garden with a young woman who had a star tattoo on her neck. Sephira, a fourth-class investigator from the Erosion Survey Department. She carried 2 folders with documents. The star on Sephira's neck caught Crash's attention, who tried to compose himself. "It seems we've met again." The young woman was confused, but soon heard, "Hey, Immortal, I want to make a deal with you. I will erase your immortality for you." Sephira grasped what his words meant. "Tell me, are you the regressor?" A shadowy body, sharp red eyes, and a scar on the face over the eye appeared on Sephira, who revealed, "I have been searching for someone all this time, but it seems fate has sent me the wrong man. The Immortal, the Crimson Gardener, August." Before the regression, under Arthur's orders, Crash tried to steal her immortality, but that attempt ended in failure. They then sealed her and put her in a state where the regeneration of immortality needed to be 100% expended to keep her alive, preventing her from controlling the servants. The women who followed Arthur began to comment on the difficulties they faced because of August, but Arthur quickly intervened to prevent any fighting. Arthur thought it was a pity Crash couldn't steal the curse of immortality, but the condition for that was to be stronger than August himself. When asked if he was a regressor, Crash questioned what made Sephira think he was one. Sephira revealed parts of her true self while smiling. The moment a child dares to propose something like that, it becomes obvious that only a regressor would do it, unleashing part of their great power. Sephira scoffed. "You are trapped in your infinite time loop, yet you still claim you will eliminate me, the one who transcends time itself. Don't make me laugh with such transparent lies." Showing that he wasn't lying, Crash extended his hand and warned, "My ability might even steal your immortality." August had been raising the level of every erosion for centuries just to find someone capable of eliminating it. Now the one who could remove her immortality stood before her, watching Crash obtain an item that was in his mind. She believed and asked what condition the young man needed to provide her with what he sought. Crash made his request, "Help me become stronger. My ability will only activate if I am stronger than you." August decided he would make Crash his apprentice. Thus he could rid himself of the immortality he gained by selling his own soul. August's power soared like a dragon as he swore, "I, August, the Crimson Gardener, will make you the strongest man alive." A strong wind was created by her aura. almost making Crash fly away. The Crimson Garden had strength to rival Arthur and commanded legions of servants. With her help, he could become even stronger, even needing the power of an invader. Crash vowed that he would protect the world. A skill is a unique power held by only one person in the world. According to this rule, it was Arthur's regression skill. He returned to him in this life, meaning it was impossible for Crash to regress again by his own will. If the world perished again in this era, Crash would be swept away with it. Having sealed the deal, Crash extended his hand, happy to have you with him. Crane, hearing the young man call her by her real name, smiled with sharp teeth. "Crash! Call me master!" She punished him with a slap on the head, pushing him down into the ground. After finishing the agreement, Crash declared he would leave. Mosswitch surprised her. "You don't live here!" He revealed he hadn't lived there for years and could hardly remember his parents' faces. Suddenly, a hooded woman, one of the adult wings from the Hall of the Valkyries, approached Crash, warning him that his mother was calling for him. Crash was taken aback, as his mother had never shown her face while he lived in the Blue Pine Mansion. There might be a chance she had grown curious upon hearing rumors about him. The Valkyrie also revealed that the head of the family had said that upon returning from the Forbidden Domain, he intended to meet you in person this time. Crash was startled. Crash's father had ascended to a semi-divine state. Perhaps he had sensed something of the young man through the stars. Telling the boy that his father wanted to see him, the Valkyrie asserted that Lyda had requested he remain in the mansion until the main event occurred. Bianca, however, was waiting for him, and there were many things to do. He did not want to waste time. As this was not a direct order from his father, Crash announced, "I'm leaving. I'll return when my father personally summons me." Crash also thought of a possibility. Perhaps he would come to see me himself. The carriage awaited the young man, who departed immediately, leaving the realm and crossing the fields. Inside the carriage, Crash managed to rest for the first time. Outside the carriage, a red bird tapped its beak on the window. "Watch your rude manners, apprentice. Open the door," Crash complained to the red raven. "Cream, don't you think your crimson tone is a bit too flashy?" The raven took on a black hue, revealing that it could change at will, morphing into wings of black colors. She laughed. "Now I am as dark as your soul. Ha ha ha." Curious, Crash inquired about Cream's main body. She revealed the truth he already knew. She could not move her real body at the moment due to a petty regressor. Crash was taking the blame for what the true regressor Arthur had done, but he didn't want to explain the truth. Near sunset, they arrived at the Blue Pine Mansion. As they got out of the carriage, Crash warned, "There's a white bird at home, be nice to her." Crash was referring to Bianca, who unexpectedly wore a chick costume to greet him. "Welcome back." As he showed Bianca that he had returned as promised, Crash saw the butler rush towards him as if something had happened. The butler revealed that a letter had arrived from Master Darling's mansion. Crash read the letter, in which Darling announced he had created a cure for the discoloration disease. The protagonist handed the letter to the butler and instructed him to treat Darling with the utmost respect. "He is your benefactor." The butler leaned close to Crash's ear and revealed that Lady Bianca had been worried about him lately. Ario specified that when Bianca learned he had been trapped in an erosion zone, she immediately wanted to visit him at the main mansion. Crash had not checked Bianca's curse lock lately. This time he did, creating a dark hand that approached her. Bianca's curse lock was open. He could pass through it. Seeing Crash stare at her in surprise, Bianca asked if something was wrong with her face. The protagonist changed the subject and revealed he wanted to introduce her to his new friend. The black raven was about to fly when it was held by Bianca, discovering that the bird's name was Cream. She hugged it, even sniffing it. "It's soft as whipped cream." Crash ended up realizing how much Bianca loved animals. Now the crush wanted to know how to pass the second condition to obtain Bianca's curse. This time, he needed to become an important person to her. Typically, important people were parents, children, friends, or lovers. Technically, he was her fiancé, so the lover option was the closest possible. As the blackbird flew from Bianca's arms, after nearly being crushed by her, the protagonist wondered how he could advance his relationship with Bianca, who possessed no emotions. The conditions weren't like this before he regressed. While he thought about it, Kryn, who landed on his head, punished him with sharp claws. Even Kryn had noticed. "It seems that girl liked me. She wouldn't let go of me." Crash agreed. "Yes, she must have liked you a lot." Speaking of something important, Master Crow requested, "Crash, I want to test your strength. The playtime is over. Let's go straight to the training area." The protagonist was surprised, but he obliged as ordered. It didn't take long. Before, when he was exhausted, the crow assessed him. It's pitiful to think that the regressor would have such trash talent. The bird managed to give a more detailed assessment while he was still getting up. Now you barely crawled over here, using your past experiences and secret techniques, but this effort will be surpassed by a true genius in less than 5 years. However, this will only happen if we are talking about pure talent. Talent means nothing in front of me. Cream recalled the skill that Crash possessed and advised him. If you lack talent, just steal it from someone else. You, who have never been able to escape the bottom of the production line, I will be the one to lift you up. You will achieve everything from a place higher than the clouds. Lastly, the bird revealed the shadow of its true appearance and demanded, and after all this, you will even steal my immortality. Hearing the motivating words, Crash clenched his fist tightly and decided, well, this is going to happen anyway. A few days later, on a sunny day, Darling cheerfully hopped through the garden of the Blue Pine Mansion during his long-awaited visit. He ran towards Crash, who was practicing with his sword. You kept me waiting too long, sweetie. Crash, irritated, told him not to call him that, which only made Darling more excited. Getting to the main topic, the protagonist asked what he was doing at the mansion, while Crash continued to swing his sword. Darling Dunferlion searched through his bag. He pulled out a vial with a small pill and showed it to him. Here it is! Finishing, he handed the vial to Crash, smiling and looking for compliments. What do you think? Am I a genius or what? Crash thought it unnecessary to affirm the obvious. Darling observed the young man for a moment and suddenly tried to hug him. Crash quickly pushed him away, but Darling, who was trying to say something, seemingly remembered Annex. Crash was confused upon hearing the young man's name. Suddenly, Darling revealed the details. Annex had stopped training after losing to Charlotte, but had resumed training after the incident at the Sanctuary of Stars. The protagonist couldn't believe that the traitor had actually been inspired after being defeated by him. Sighing, he claimed not to care about Annex and told Darling to go home. At that moment, a black crow landed on a nearby tree and interrupted Crash, warning, "It's fine for him to stay. I intended to use an elixir to strengthen that weak body of yours anyway. Ask that man with the alchemy star to prepare some elixirs for you, a special medicine that boosts physical attributes and aura when consumed." Darling had still not left and was pouting, trying to convince Crash to let him stay a little longer. The elixirs were extremely expensive and sometimes involved secret manufacturing techniques passed down through family lineages. They were meant only for a few selected ones, far beyond Crash's knowledge. In his past life, the crow warned that it knew a formula, so they would just need to convey it to the alchemist. Thus, Crash obeyed the crow and informed Darling, "There's one more thing I want." As soon as he heard that Crash wanted, he chirred. The young alchemist asked if, by any chance, the news about the Nix had ignited his thirst for growth. Still, Darling questioned whether Crash could obtain the materials, as the Valheim family did not support him. Having knowledge from his past life, Crash was confident he could acquire the items. The crow, perched in a nearby tree, instructed Crash to repeat the recipe as he mentioned it. Thus, the protagonist listed the ingredients one by one, witnessing Darling's expression change with each moment. Mouth agape, surprised, shocked, and overwhelmed by the complexity of the elixir, he began jotting down notes. In the end, he realized it would work, and was amazed. Wow, where did you get this kind of information? The crow felt proud to see a talented alchemist recognize its formula. In response to Darling's question, the protagonist simply stated that it was a technique passed down within the Valheim family. Darling agreed to make the elixir, but there was a problem: how to obtain the materials. He wouldn't even be able to get his hands on the sun fungus of the heat snow or the golden dragon herb. First, the heat snow fungus grew in Harden Hearts, but the mountains were steep and erosion was severe, making it almost impossible to find. Regarding this item, Crash thought to ask Bianca, since her family was from Harden Hearts. Then there was the golden dragon herb, which was said to only grow near golden dragon nests in the remote regions of the Empire. They might be able to buy it in the black market, but if the Empire found out, it would be a headache if there were no other options. Crash would have to find an underground cellar in person, but Darling knew a better way. There's a junior martial arts tournament held in the Aphania Empire for those under 15 years old. All you have to do is come in first place. The reward for this tournament is the Golden Dragon Herb. What do you think? Good idea, right? The protagonist scratched his head, reminding Darling that he was from the Valheim family. The Empire was likely using this tournament to gain political leverage against the Academy. If a Valheim participated, things would get complicated. However, Darling had a plan. He took a pink vial and told Crash to drink it. As soon as the protagonist consumed the contents of the vial, his hair grew, and his body was altered. He was transformed into a woman. Excitedly, Darling revealed the plan. Anyone can participate in the tournament as long as their identity isn't revealed. Right, all you need to do is enter the tournament as a girl. Crash, the crow, rolled his eyes at the alchemist's plan. Crash was the one who became even angrier. He unleashed his corrosion energy and made Darling cry as he deeply apologized. A few days later, Crash found himself training with the crow. The bird created blades of dark energy, imbued with a slight crimson hue. Crash closed his eyes, concentrated, and wielded the sword, facing the attacks. The volume of strikes created by Cream overwhelmed the young man, forcing him to be quick. When finally Crash fell, Master Crow warned that they would only go this far. The pure blade technique I taught you this time is a style that reads the enemy's attacks without retreating. It's a high-level technique to instantly understand your opponent's movements. But combined with your natural intuition and sixth sense, you've reached a realm that almost approaches future sight. Cream believed that if he used the elixir to strengthen his body, his movements would reach the speed of thought, making him stronger. He announced that it was time to leave. Crash prepared himself and followed. Where are we going? In Crash's hands was also a small blue potion. A few days earlier, he had obtained the medicine from Darling, who warned that not even detection magic would discover it. He would use the potion to disguise himself. Discovering the potion's effect left Crash extremely irritated, as Darling had turned him into a woman as a joke. Even days later, he still sighed at the thought of the ordeal he went through. Soon, Crash found himself with the butler waiting by the carriages. The area had managed to make contact with the lawless zone, and a merchant would help them enter the empire illegally. A young girl with pink hair, in front of a cage where there was a fox, introduced herself and asked him to hide, seeing that he was going with a dealer of erosion species. Crash believed they would be able to enter the enemy kingdom. He thanked the butler, leaving the Blue Pine Mansion. Under his, command, the butler accepted the mission, releasing an aura of justice. I will not let anyone in, even if the visitor is the head of the family. On the day that Darling delivered the medicine for the discoloration disease and Crash handed it to Ariel, the butler fell to his knees, trembling and crying while expressing his gratitude. He believed that his life could already be coming to an end, as there were no more regrets. Flash, however, asked, if you are truly grateful, then keep living, since I saved your daughter's life. Do not dare abandon this world until I say so. Just keep serving me. That is a small price compared to her life, right? With utmost gratitude, Helio vowed, I will serve you, no matter what. Crash no longer needed to worry about the butler's betrayal. Bianca, who held a basket and wore a hood, thanked Crush for accepting her plea. He would send her home and asked her to rest. However, she warned that as soon as she obtained the white snow solar fungus, she would return immediately. Then she handed him the basket and vowed to wait for him. He accepted the gift and promised, I will try to return as soon as possible. Seeing the sandwiches in the basket, he thanked her, then headed to the carriage, said goodbye, and wished her a good journey as well. Crash set off towards the Empire. The journey was interrupted, and Crash used the power of Ignis to combat the monsters along the way. The bird flew overhead, asking what the power of erosion was like. Crash felt stability thanks to his sixth sense, as the merchant was taking a route that avoided eroded lands as much as possible. Crash could not absorb any unpurified erosion along the way, only fighting against small prey. While Crash and the Raven conversed, the merchant guided the cart while eating an apple. The apple suddenly fell. The crime warned that something had happened. The merchant had been captured by bandits. The leader of the bandits maliciously approached the young merchant, who blamed herself for not noticing their approach. A noise suddenly erupted, and a wide cut of energy eliminated most of the bandits at once. Crash's gaze was grim upon seeing someone getting in the way of his plans. The leader of the bandits was startled, but ordered his henchmen to advance. Several muscular bandits rushed toward Crash, ignoring the merchant. The protagonist held the sword, not with his hand, but with energy. He walked amid the bandits, delivering a single blow to each of them, eliminating them as he moved closer to the leader. Realizing that the young man was no ordinary foe, the leader attacked him with an axe. Crash raised the sword and blocked. The bandit did not stop, slicing through the air with precision, trying to hit the young man. However, his attack seemed to be red. This infuriated him. Do you think your cheap trick will keep working on me? Crash mocked the man, as he could face him even without using his sixth sense. The bandit decided to use his secret skill. All right, I will destroy your sword, and you along with it. Crash raised his sword to block the blow. From the bandit's axe, but halfway through, the strike changed direction, attacking not from above, but from the side. Crash's eyes widened in surprise. A loud impact echoed through the forest. Fire erupted all over Crash's body as he stared deeply at the man. That secret technique. You are a disciple of the butcher dog, aren't you? Crash remembered Bergman well, the butcher dog. He was someone who had become a servant of the invaders. Just like Bianca, he was destined to infiltrate Starin, to eliminate people, being stopped only by Charlotte. Facing the possible apprentice of Bergman, Crash wondered what was happening, as the incident would make Charlotte famous throughout the Empire. Bergman's infiltration in Starin wasn't supposed to happen yet. One of his subordinates in the lawless zone was extremely curious. Crash didn't seek answers. He just attacked with the flames of Ignis and eliminated the bandit. The protagonist felt a bad sensation related to the incident, which is why he planned to quickly obtain the golden dragon grass to get out of there. The capital of the Sealan Empire was a large city, cut by rivers with enormous castles. Crash made his way to the building where the registrations for the martial tournament were taking place. There was already a large number of people present. A young girl with white hair, Cisleophania, the fourth princess of the Empire, currently 14 years old, was among them. Her eyes sparkled with excitement at seeing so many interesting competitors. "My precious diamonds, I will take each of you to the La Helene Academy." Beside her, an assistant warned, "Such inappropriate behavior, princess. If your majesty saw you, she would faint on the spot." However, just imagining her father complaining made Cicely nearly faint. The assistant saw the little princess covering her ears to block out the sound. Cisleophania was the youngest daughter of the Empire. At 7 years old, she already possessed a brilliant mind capable of solving advanced math problems. Everyone believed she could rewrite the history of the Empire and become a candidate for the throne. However, she knew that, being fragile, if she got involved in the imperial contest, she would surely be the first eliminated. Cicely decided to abandon everything and make them give up on her, all in the name of survival. From then on, Cicely used her brilliant mind to act as an uncontrollable troublemaker. Eventually, even those who praised her intelligence gave up considering her an imperial candidate. Having watched Lady Sizzle for so long, the assistant knew she was just pretending. However, she seemed to be taking it very seriously lately. Cicely leaned over the wooden railing of the second floor, calling for her assistant Sira. "Look!" There was a hooded young man with a dark aura, his eyes half closed and a crow on his shoulder. The princess became extremely excited as the young man exuded a villainous aura, and if he was from Valheim, our sworn enemy. Despite the young man appearing suspicious, Sarah dismissed the possibility of him being from Valheim. However, the princess wanted to find out. She climbed over the wooden fence and jumped towards the young man. "I'm going to check this personally." As soon as she landed in the hall, Cicely hurried towards the one she had seen. Time to expose his true identity. Suddenly, the young girl stumbled, and the very one she wanted to unveil caught her to prevent her from falling. The young man with closed eyes and long bangs warned her, "Hey, wild girl, watch your steps." Wesley stood still in the middle of the hall as the young man walked away. She then realized that his calm tone and demeanor showed he knew who she was. Crime praised Crash's luck for meeting the fourth princess. However, he, conversely, wanted to avoid her as much as possible. He had already finished the registration for the competition. Taking the name Claude Owen, he just needed to find an inn. The first one he found was full, as were the second and third. As Crash pondered where he could sleep that night, a kindly old woman appeared. "Hey boy, are you here for the tournament? If you need a place to stay, you can stay at my house." The woman smiled gently, which made Crash accept, even with the crow thinking she was suspicious. The crow flapped its wings irritably above Crash. "You! Didn't anyone ever teach you not to follow strangers?" Having slept in the open many times in his previous life, Crash didn't want to go through that again. The two ended up leaving the city and went to the forest outskirts until they reached a large house. The old woman warned him that he could use the room at the end of the second floor while she prepared something for him to eat. Crash climbed the stairs, relieved to have been lucky enough to find a bed to sleep in. However, halfway up, there was a young woman with white hair. "Oh, you're the man from earlier." Crash hid his face as he lowered his head melancholically. The crow reminded him, "I warned you, you've fallen into a trap." Pretending not to recognize the princess, he simply ignored her and walked towards the room. Cicely quickly approached him before he entered the room and teased, "I'm a cute girl trying to talk to you, but I'm being ignored. Does he like boys?" Cicely ended up making the protagonist remember Darling, which infuriated him. He took off the cloak while ignoring her. "You just aren't my type. There are many prettier girls in the world." Cicely followed him curiously, asking who was prettier than her, but he refused to answer. Being followed down the hallway to the stairs leading to the first floor, Crash stopped and warned her, "Stop following me." The young woman with white hair, however, asked to talk together. "I want to know more about you." Crash thanked her for the invitation. But at that moment, coldly, Cicely used her final card, knowing full well that I am a princess, you still act this way. She stared at him, revealing her registered identity for the tournament. "You will really do this, Mr. Claude of the Starlong Kingdom?" Crash knew that if he spoke more, he could be exposed, so he feigned ignorance. I don't know what you're talking about. A child must finish their meal quickly and prepare for bed. Sizzle was outraged, reminding the young man who believed he was, called Claude, that he too was a child. Sarah interrupted the princess, asking if the young man was really from Starlong. The princess confirmed. Even though the Empire's language and Starlong's were the same, each had its own intonation, and he carried that of the region. Crash sat down at the table, eating alongside the raven next to the princess. Sarah praised her for noticing every detail of someone's accent. Sisley had a brain capable of analyzing information that normal people couldn't. She became even more intrigued by the young man, for by his reaction it seemed he knew her, but she had never seen him before. Sarah picked up a sword, asking if she should capture and interrogate the young man. Sissy quickly interjected, changing the subject, and asked if Sarah had found out anything about her sister. Sarah confirmed with regret. As you predicted, the third Princess Sigrun seems completely different compared to a year ago, receiving the treatment of disdain from her sister. Sizzle had already noticed that Sigrun was no longer who she used to be. She believed that in this way, the first and second princes were in danger. A red rain would fall upon the imperial palace. The day of the competition arrived. Crash's punch came like thunder, launching his opponent to the other side of the arena. Everyone was surprised and heard the announcement of the end of the preliminaries. The 4 winners would advance. Everyone watched the young man with curiosity. Who is that guy with the half-closed eyes? Does he live in the underworld? That raven is strange too. Even though it moves intensely, the bird doesn't leave his shoulder. Crash knew the reason for the look. He had been pursued by the princess since the previous day. Despite her investigation, Crash was relieved that she hadn't interfered in the preliminaries. He left the battlefield behind with the opponents fallen on the ground. The preliminaries consisted of teams of 100 players, and only the top 4 would advance to the finals. Since there were only common opponents, he found it natural to win with such a power difference. As he returned to the inside of the Colosseum, a man with his face covered in bandages stopped him. He, as the rumors say, there's a suspicious raven on your shoulder. The man, filled with scars and stitches all over his body, asked if Claude was from the famous underworld family, the Night Raven. The Night Raven was a group of assassins not affiliated with the Empire, but feared as the most dangerous force in their underworld. They had been one of the factors in the Empire's downfall in Crash's past life. Since they weren't part of the Empire, Crash didn't know much about them, but he had heard about them. After entering the academy, he stated that the man was mistaken, thinking he was being threatened. The bandaged man jumped back. Ow! Take it easy! I have no idea who is behind you. I just wanted to get along with friends from the underworld. He waved to Claude and said goodbye. Pleasure to meet you, Night Raven. And with that, he fled. As Crash appeared deep in thought, the raven on his shoulder asked if something was bothering him, wanting to help. Cream flew off, left Crash's shoulder, chased the bandaged man, and attacked him psychically before returning. The raven revealed that it had brainwashed him, proving useful by calling the bandaged man back. Crash asked what had happened to the Night Ravens. The man revealed that they had faced a crisis not too long ago, and if they were destroyed, they attempted to participate in the martial arts tournament on the orders of the new master, questioning who the new master was. Crash heard the answer. He is the second prince of the Aphania Empire. Upon seeing Crash's surprise, the raven asked if something was wrong. The protagonist revealed that the Night Ravens were a trap created by the Empire to capture nobles. They were used to manipulate the movements of the aristocracy. The imperial family had been the master from the beginning. Thus, calling him the new master is strange. The fact that Night Raven and the imperial family are originally connected should have been hidden from the public until the fall of the Empire. Crash disclosed his thoughts and doubts to Cream. But the fact that even a low-level guy like this knows that the second prince is the master means that someone is using the second prince and intentionally spreading rumors. Crash remembered something. Originally, the role of the second prince was to strengthen the influence of the first prince. The Night Ravens planned to get rid of the second prince first to weaken the power of the crown prince. In that case, who would benefit from the confrontation would be none other than Sigrun Ephania. If Sigrun was moving differently this time, Flash believed there was a possibility that Arthur's memory inheritance plan had succeeded. If that happened, the person Sigrun was targeting now, possessing the memories of the future, would be the one who sacrificed herself after hiding the Emperor's symbol, the White Dragon Pearl, and the one who made Arthur merely an emperor in the name of the fourth princess, Sisley Ephania. To secure the throne she obtained for Arthur, Sigrun would try to eliminate the troublesome Sisley first. If Sigrun became empress, the empire would perish, leading to a global flow of erosion. To prevent the end of the world, Crash realized he would have to interfere with these plans for the sake of the world. Sigrun and her ability became his new target. The protagonist asked Kryn for help. The Raven believed that a returner would generally try to act only based on the information they had, but how would deciding to lend their power help this time? Changing the subject, the Raven asked what they would do with the man in the stripes. The protagonist allowed him to be let go, since he had fulfilled his purpose. Kryn, however, wanted to make him a servant and marked him with a star. "Go back to where you belong!" The man staggered off. Kryn asked the protagonist what they would do. Now, Crash decided, "It's time to use our appearance. In this form, we will find the true Raven of the Night hidden in the finals." At the same time, in the underworld, a hooded being silently ate with a toothless mouth. "Claude, did you say there's someone named Claude? To think someone would pretend to be me, a member of the Ravens of the Night." Shadows began to gather around that long-haired person with red eyes like a crimson energy from the dark. "I will teach you a lesson." Back at the Rappergeur martial arts tournament in the round of 32, Claudia used her legs around the opponent to make him foam at the mouth, defeating her enemy. The protagonist raised his raven in his hand while he listened to the winner of that battle. "It's Claude!" In the stands, everyone shouted the name of the Raven of the Night. The protagonist kept his face hidden, impressed that everyone was convinced of his false identity, but hoped the true Raven of the Night would appear soon. Before leaving the arena, the protagonist spotted Ceasley and Sierra in the stands. The princess had come to watch him, even after he had warned her on the night the preliminaries ended. The princess met with him to say she had heard he won, but she became curious seeing that Claude's gaze showed concern. The protagonist replied mysteriously, "It's nothing, just, you certainly have a strange life." Confused, the princess asked if something had happened, but he simply ignored her, unwilling to talk, and warned, "Mind your own business. The main finals are tomorrow, so I'm going to sleep." The princess brought her hand to her face, sighing. She knew something had happened, and wondered where Claude got his information. She called for Sierra, and asked if they could really trust the Empire's spy they had hired. Sierra frowned, and decided to confirm the information, just to be sure. The fact that Sizzle was still there, despite Crash's warning, meant that she must have noticed Sigrun's plan. Looking at the one she knew as Claudia, the princess murmured to herself, "Night Raven, that name isn't cool." Having gone through the finals, Crash now awaited the real person to show up, while wondering if the princess knew he was just pretending to be the Night Raven. When he returned to the Colosseum's hallway, he encountered a woman with long hair, her tongue sticking out, who questioned him. "Hey, is it fun pretending to be the Night Raven?" The woman was leaning against the wall, just like the bandaged man from the previous day. Crash smiled wickedly, though surprised. "I didn't expect you to reveal yourself so soon." The woman quickly grabbed 2 daggers and lunged at him. Crash watched her and dodged each strike until she jumped directly to stab him, and he held her wrists. With her arms immobilized, the Night Raven employed another tactic. Bone arms emerged with sharp claws at the tips and an embedded aura of erosion. "This is your end, boy." However, Crash managed to overpower her, shattering the bone arms with a headbutt. He also hit her in the face. As he knocked her down, he demonstrated his superiority. "It's futile. Dark art strengthened by the world's erosion don't work on me." Evelasque, the one controlling the woman who attacked him, was astonished. As he discovered my true identity, the protagonist approached the woman and questioned, "Is the tiger holding your heart? It's not where you are now. I have something to discuss with you." The woman in front of him, being merely a puppet, stammered, unable to respond. Crash pointed at her and offered a deal. "I will use my ability to retrieve your heart in exchange for you telling me everything about Sigram's plan. Hand over all the information about Evelask Benapote, the necromancer." In a distant place, a young girl in glasses and pajamas under the covers clutched her bag of chips, startled. Necromancer Evelask Benapote was a world eroder, whose heart had been stolen and held captive by the Empire for 1,000 years. In the past, Arthur had introduced her, saying she might be useful. The generation of the Blue Skies didn't care much about this girl, and Crash had only heard that she was the only necromancer in the world. He didn't know she was the Night Raven. Pausing to think, Crash realized that if what attacked him was only a zombie, it wouldn't reveal information, even if it failed. A necromancer controlling bodies, ravens clustering around them, and a family of masters. All signs pointed to the association with Evelask. As the Night Raven was eliminated while Crash was in the academy, he never knew their true identity. The protagonist wondered if she had disappeared because she was captured by Arthur. The protagonist kicked a random door and found, behind it, a young girl in the midst of trash and spider webs. She curled up under the blanket, moving away. Crash pulled the blanket, revealing the young girl with long hair, orange streaks, and white raven brooches in her hair. Touching Evelask on the chin, he made her lift her head. The 1,000-year-old girl stammered in fear. "What are you doing? You said you would find my heart." The protagonist confirmed what he would do and revealed that for this reason, he wanted to show the ability he possessed. The energy from the black hood formed a mouth in Crash's hand, trying to steal Evelask's curse, but encountered dozens of locks with so many conditions. An indirect approach would be difficult. The protagonist was straightforward. Evelask, if you give me permission to obtain your heart, I can get it here and now. The necromancer adjusted herself and spoke hurriedly. Yes, I give you permission. However, the protagonist asked her not just to say it, but to put all her emotions into it. Evelask didn't know how to do that, but asserted she was speaking seriously. The protagonist instructed the girl, crying, to imagine, "You are already tired of this life, aren't you? Recovering your heart will allow you to relax in this room every day. You won't have to work with zombies. You can simply eat whatever you want and play in a comfortable environment. But if you don't get your heart back, you will have to spend the rest of your life working as a puppet of the imperial family, working every day without a break." Evelask jumped up hurriedly. "No, I don't want to do this anymore." The fury of the necromancer even made the zombies around her rise. Her power created waves of energy that almost forced Crash to retreat. Having worked for over 1,000 years, Evelask cried as she pleaded, "Save me, Claude." The protagonist then revealed, "You have no choice but to trust your heart to me, right? This way, you will never have to work for the rest of your life." Evelask began to cry out, encouraged by Claude. "I don't need a heart like that. I give it to you so that I can be free." The protagonist encouraged her further. "Offer your heart in exchange for the true desire hidden within your soul, Evelask." He placed his hand on her head and asked, "Trust me." The girl cried to the point where bubbles of mucus formed. "I want to play for the rest of my life. Please take this heart away." The power of the Black Hood finally took effect. Crash congratulated her. "Good job, Evelask. With that, you are finally free." Upon hearing that she would be free, Evelask hurriedly asked him to retrieve her heart. The protagonist, however, insisted that she keep the promise. "I will give you your heart when everything is over." Evelask did not want to work anymore, but Crash asked her to do it one last time, to reveal what Sigrun's plan was. Evelask asked if Claudia knew the swordmaster who accompanied the fourth princess, Sarah Batera, and revealed, "I will use that woman. I have been ordered to use her body to eliminate Sisley." That night, Sarah found herself facing a spear being thrust through her. She confronted the woman before her. "You shouldn't be stronger than me." Diana, who was being watched by a black crow, mocked Sarah. "Isn't it tough to realize it all too late?" Throughout the Empire, the tip of the spear advanced as she bid, "Farewell. Goodbye, Sarah, the sword of madness." As Sarah fell to the ground, a large zombie walked towards the two, knowing he was being controlled by the necromancer. Diana commanded, "This is an order from Lord Sigrun. Manipulate Sarah's body and eliminate the fourth princess, Sisley." Diana looked at the moon, remembering how it had already been a year since her return. To the moon, she asked, "Lord Arthur, are you watching us? Lord Sigrun and I are doing our best for you. Lord Arthur, I miss you." A day after the regression, all three of Arthur's women met with him at a hotel. That day, he had told them to wait for him at the Peace Statue Square at dusk. However, Arthur did not show up that day, when even the beautiful had disappeared. Mary asked Sigrun, who was with her, if she couldn't find Lord Arthur. They wondered where he could be now after a year of waiting. Diana still persisted. She believed in Arthur as Sigrun had encouraged her to do. Mary swore that before Lord Arthur returned, she would regain her strength and become the strongest spear. Looking back at the hulking zombie, she called to Evelask, who was behind him. She asked, curious, "Is the young man with the raven who was in the tournament one of your bodies?" The zombie confirmed, and Evelask was praised. "You have good taste. You intentionally put a raven on him to catch the dark attention." However, she warned, "Don't think about doing anything strange, just because Sigrunio isn't here. I still have your heart, got it?" Pretending to be scared, Evelask felt it that way. The zombie left with the wax body. As she watched it go, Mary sighed. Evelask always had bad taste in bodies, but this time she was hiding such a cute boy. Licking her lips, she sighed in disappointment that the boy was just a zombie. The next day, the same boy arrived at the arena. Before him stood his opponent, someone he never expected to fight, Peely, a 14-year-old peasant from the provinces. He had a very ordinary appearance, a pure boy whose dream was world peace. Peely was a strong person, belonging to the blue generation just like the academy. Everyone saw Claudia draw her sword for the first time and believed that the opponent was strong, even being so thin. Peely also drew his sword and tried to bring Claude to the side of good. "You don't want to follow this life, right? They are going to inaugurate the academy there, Helena. That's a place where no country can interfere. You and I made it to the finals, so we have guaranteed admission. You can leave the Ravens of the Night and live a normal life." Peely showed the protagonist to be who he always was, a great companion. As the referee waved for the countdown, the protagonist gave a warning to the young man. If you cling too much to your hope, when you face despair, you won't be able to overcome it. Seeing that he was rejected, Peely heard the referee's whistle and advanced with a 10-meter leap, dodging as he moved forward. The tip of Peely's sword was pointed ahead, but at the last second he twisted to Claude's back, attempting an attack that was defended against. His feint read as if his sword were already known. Peely saw each of his attacks blocked. He felt as if he were facing a ghost. The protagonist remained silent, but internally, he had a deep impression of Peely, the movement technique he had created, which had developed in a region where it snows year-round. Moving as if gliding on ice, even in Rijupo, also known as the 10-league step, just like himself, strong as Anax, and striving considerably. His feints, his attack habits, even his ultimate move, Crash, which had always been following him, managed to observe everything. Therefore, Crash knew him better than Peely knew himself. While Peely struggled with the difficulty of not being able to reach his opponent, the Raven soared, witnessing what it truly meant to know the opponent. It combined with the sixth sense, moving slower than the opponent but reaching the target first. The experience caused Peely's talent to be surpassed. Crash placed the sword on Peely's shoulder and advised him, "Become stronger so that even if your hope is shattered, you can leave behind a seed of it." The protagonist struck the young man with a strong punch, lifting him into the air. Peely fell, and Claude raised his fist, allowing the Raven to land as he heard his name announced as the victor. Before Crash left the arena, he heard the young man's voice, "Claude, let's meet again in their past lives." Peely had always valued Crash greatly and had vowed to work hard to lift the curse he bore and protect the world. The protagonist had never had such a determination. The opportunity to thank this time, he told Pyle, "We will see each other at the gym." Thus, he left the young man behind with the promise that they would meet again in a box. The second Prince Sifon and Fania were celebrating, with Evelask by his side. "You came fully prepared as expected from the Night Raven. You do not disappoint." The prince planned to use the Night Raven and victories over the nobles to one day steal the throne. Evelask approached timidly. "It is an honor to be praised by your highness." The second Prince Sifon ordered her to lower her head and continue being a faithful dog, reminding her, "I still possess your heart." While Sifon was giving orders, a guard heard heavy footsteps approaching. The man bellowed, "Who are you? The second prince is here." However, as soon as the prince stood up, he came face to face with the details on the knights' armors. They were the Black Dragon Knights, who only moved when there was an order to punish criminals. Among the knights, Mary Diana walked toward the prince, warning, "If it is a Fania, we are arresting you on suspicion of attacking the fourth Princess Cecila and Fania." The second prince was shocked by the accusation. "Why would I do something like that to that idiot?" With a stern look, Mary warned, "In the hideout of the Night Raven, an order to eliminate the fourth princess sent by you was found." The prince shouted furiously at her, "Don't be ridiculous, I never wrote anything like that." He turned to Evelask, commanding, "What are you doing? Eliminate these people who are treating me like a criminal." However, the necromancer stuttered while crying, unsure of how to respond. At that moment, a young voice emerged. "Who are you saying was eliminated?" Mary's gaze darkened. She looked back and saw the princess behind Sarah. Cecila asked, "Sarah, when did something happen to me?" The swordmaster replied, "No, there just wasn't any attack. I didn't see anyone with such an intention." Sizzle and Fania waved to Mary with smiles on their faces, showing that both she and Sierra were alive. The princess stared at Mary, commenting, "It seems something is wrong because this person thinks I have been eliminated." With her mouth agape, Mary, who did not see her plan succeed, asked what had happened the night before. Sarah was rushing in a hurry upon discovering that her princess's premonition had come true. Sizzle had questioned whether the spy was truly reliable, and Sarah decided to check once more. Sierra eventually discovered that all the spies they had planted had been neutralized. With the unexpected turn of events, she wondered, worried, who was targeting Princess Cicely. As she tried to return, Princess Sierra saw a black raven in her path. The raven spread its wings and released a dark crimson energy, and a voice emerged in the young knight's mind. "In exchange for your vitality, I will share the power of immortality with you, for a time. Therefore, pretend you are not alive anymore." Hearing the voice enter her mind, Sierra also felt the energy of the raven enter her body. A star appeared in her eye. Sarah staggered after feeling dizzy for a moment, wondering what was happening. "He asked me to pretend I'm not alive? Is someone hunting me?" At the same time, Mary and Diana appeared behind her. Sierra's question was answered by Diana's spear. She realized that if it weren't for Claudia's raven lending her immortality, she wouldn't be able to stand by Sizzle the following day. The fourth princess, now facing Mary, ordered, "Sierra, former vice captain of the Yellow Dragon Knights, and my knight, detained the vice captain of the Black Dragon Knights on suspicion of espionage. The knights were startled by the accusation directed at their vice captain. The fourth princess glared at them with a piercing look and assumed that I was no longer alive. And she brought the Dragon Knights. It's not like she could do that without being involved. Did she obey her princess? And she charged, sword in hand, striking one of the knights in her way, throwing him against a wall. She approached Mary, who didn't even know when the table had turned against her. Mary had ordered Evelask to use a body to eliminate Sizzle after dealing with Sira. Still, both were walking under the sunlight. Meanwhile, the spies that Sigrun and Mary herself had planted among the Black Dragon Knights were being defeated. The cunning fourth imperial princess noticed everything and ruined the plan. Mary bared her teeth, understanding why Sigrun had tried to eliminate her sister. If they left her alive, she would become a great obstacle. Knowing this, Mary reached into a bag where there was a heart. She squeezed the heart and commanded its owner, "Eliminate the fourth princess of the empire immediately." Evelask was surprised by the order, for although Claude had sworn he would help her, he had not yet stolen the heart. Evelask couldn't refuse the command given to her heart. Her crimson energy overflowed as everyone around screamed in terror. It was at that moment that Mary felt the bag in her possession vanish. The heart had been lost. Mary had failed to eliminate the fourth princess, unable to blame the second prince. And lastly, Evelask's power had been controlled. Mary realized that she had failed in everything. Her expression turned dark and worried. Without a plan, she imagined that her last resort would be to eliminate the fourth princess personally. With everyone's attention focused on Evelask, Mary Diana felt that this was her last chance. She released a powerful golden energy and vanished using the fastest speed in the world, the ability acceleration to launch a thrust against the princess. The tip of the lance quickly approached Sizzle's neck, but ended up hitting a dense metal that carried a dark energy. Sarah gasped as she saw Claude move. Mary, being blocked, thought she had gone crazy. Like a mere zombie, she stopped. My acceleration, called the Divine Lance. Claude mocked Mary's simplistic thought, who was shocked to realize that the one confronting her knew her. The second prince realized this was the chance to escape the accusations and shouted, "What are you doing? Arrest this person immediately!" A dragon knight took the lance from Mary's hand, while others held her back. "Diana, for attempting to eliminate someone of royalty, we are arresting you." Mary was dragged by the guards as she realized she had messed everything up. She understood that her mistake had been to act after her plan had been exposed. In the end, all she could do was wish for Sigrun and Arthur to save her. As the guards took Mary away, the white-haired princess ran to check if Claude was all right. The protagonist, however, was trembling from the impact, and even using the black flames, he was still far from the level of Mary and the others. The princess warned Claude about his carelessness, but he downplayed his own accomplishment. "As long as you stay safe, it's all right." Meanwhile, the second prince ordered back and forth, "Find out if she had someone helping her, quickly." At the same time, Claude approached Evelask to escape quickly, while red puddles appeared beneath their feet, sucking them in. Claude bid farewell to Sizzle, advising her to protect herself, especially from her brothers, before they left. The princess wanted him to at least get first aid, but he reassured her, "Don't worry, I'm used to feeling pain." Thus, the princess and her knight watched them go away. Cieslin couldn't believe that Claudia had left before even allowing her to thank him. She remembered that Claudia had said she was going to the gym and decided, "I will pursue him until I can repay this debt." In a carriage in the forest, a red puddle opened up. Upon entering the carriage, Claude revealed to Evelask that it surely is convenient to have the ability to move. It would have been quite useful if there were no restrictions on its use. It was a pity that living beings could only be moved to nearby places. Evelask then handed over the golden dragon grass that he had requested. He had gone through great adventures to obtain it. At the same time, Crash tossed her a heart. "Here's your heart," as promised. Evelask was impressed and asked if she could really have it. She truly thought she would be deceived, but she realized he was different from the other invaders in the world. He was surprised by how he had been treated, and she reminded him, "You didn't use the invader's power when you stopped Mary's attack." Crash understood that Evelask had believed his story because she misunderstood the source of his power. As the protagonist lay down on the bench, the Crow of Crime approached. "Hey, sorry to interrupt, but I received a message from a subordinate. It seems there's a problem with your fiancé." The Crow provided details. A guy named Butcher Dog entered the Hardened Hearts Mountains, and his fiancé, who was in the mountains, disappeared. When the protagonist met the butcher's disciple, he had a bad feeling and now understood why. The protagonist warned Evelask about the problem with his fiancé. "Let's go to Hardened Hearts immediately." The necromancer was surprised to learn that an erosion master had a fiancé, and knowing she was in Hardened Hearts left her worried. "I've heard that Valheim's fiancé is also in Hardened Hearts. I can't believe they could get engaged to a daughter from such a terrifying family. At that moment, the protagonist revealed he was not an erosion master. He pulled back the hood, also revealing that Claude was a false name. The protagonist revealed his appearance. My real name is Crash Valheim, the youngest son of the Valheim family. Revealing that she had gasped in shock, she stuttered, almost flipping the carriage upside down. Valheim, Claudia was a Valheim at the same time. In a cabin in the snowy mountains of Hardened Heart's territory, a young woman was crying, blaming herself. If I had honestly said that I had the white snow sun fungus back then, Bianca would not have gone to the mountain. She was Jennifer, Hardened Hearts, the second daughter of the Hardened Hearts family. A man with a star mark in his eye tried to gather more information, asking Lady Jenica why she had gone to the mountain with Lady Bianca. Jenica revealed in tears, "Because the flower cannot be bought in the market. That idiot! She went to collect the white snow sun fungus by herself. I didn't think she would climb the mountain alone with just a book. That's why I tried to search for her with a secret group a few days ago." Jenica chased after her sister with a group, climbing the mountains while trying to get her to come back. "I will prepare anything that flaw of the Valheim needs, so let's go back." Bianca, however, warned, "Sister, Mr. Crash is not a flaw." She also wanted to know why her sister had gone there when she could have left the work to the search team. It was also the choice made by Jennifer, who kept asking Bianca to come back. "I will give you the white snow sun fungus, so let's go back. I don't even want to see your face. So as soon as you get it, hurry back to Valheim." Bianca had already planned something like that. Jenica was someone who thought that their mother had perished because of Bianca, and that's why she always hated her. Apologizing, Bianca announced that she would return to Valheim as soon as she found the fungus. Jennifer gripped her hand tightly, and just as she was about to apologize, a man with an aura of erosion appeared behind them. "May I join you?" Jennifer looked back and saw the man wielding an axe. To eliminate the entire search team using a dog-shaped iron mask, he glared at them grimly. Jenica couldn't even comprehend what had happened. One of the men from the search team had survived. He held the butcher while shouting for the young ladies to run away. The butcher cursed the man who grabbed him and interrupted his fun. Bianca held Jenica's hand, pulling her quickly so they could escape. The butcher ended up losing track of the perfect prey he had found. He began walking through the snow, laughing as he called out for the hidden girls. Jenica could hear the man making jokes, and Bianca kept her expression neutral and warned, "Sister, I promised the crush I would return with the snow-white sun fungus." Jenica couldn't believe that Bianca kept talking about her fiancé. At that moment, she had an idea. "We're equipped with artifacts different from that guy's. We can walk safely in the snow if we head towards the chasm area. That might delay him." The butcher chased after them and overheard their conversation. The two girls managed to reach the icy gorge in time. Jenica, standing next to her sister, apologized but was afraid to move on. Bianca, however, wanted to continue. She pointed to a rock in the middle of the gorge where they could jump. Jenica, however, was frightened. "If we fail, it will be our end." Bianca remained calm and warned her, "If we stay, it will also be our end." At that moment, the butcher caught up with them and tried to convince them. "Young ladies, it's dangerous to stay here. Come with me." With her back to the icy ravine, Bianca shouted, "Now!" She grabbed her sister's arm and jumped, pulling her along. The butcher tried to reach out to follow them but couldn't catch them. However, he saw that the two had fallen onto a nearby ledge where he could jump. Laughing, the butcher leaped toward them as he was still falling. Bianca shouted, "Jenica, trust me!" Jenica didn't understand what her sister was planning to do and simply watched her distance herself. Bianca jumped against the butcher's body, and they both fell into the dark gorge. Since then, Jenica had been crying, from the exit of the gorge to the arrival at the camp. She recounted the last thing she had seen. According to the search team, the place where Bianca fell had a lot of snow, so she might still be alive. Nonetheless, Jennifer blamed herself for suggesting the ravine area because if she hadn't, Bianca wouldn't have jumped into the abyss. Jennifer kept crying, berating herself. "If I had said I would give her what we had at the mansion, if I had been honest from the start, we wouldn't have encountered that monster." The man accompanying Jennifer tried to soothe her, saying, "Bianca's law must be safe." While Crash figured out what had happened, Jennifer argued with the man, "Don't say something so irresponsible. It's been a week since then. Even if she managed to escape, she only knows how to read books. She wouldn't know how to survive in a remote mountain." In the meantime, Bianca slept on a bed of warm leaves. There was a splint on her broken leg. Bianca drooled as she murmured in her sleep, "Crash, I want to see you." When Bianca woke up, she removed the bandage from her foot. It had been several days since she was surviving solely thanks to the warmth of the mushrooms. Her body was reaching its limit. After falling into the ravine, she continued to wander aimlessly towards the highest point where she could be rescued. She found a place where the warm mushrooms grew. As the name suggested, they naturally emitted heat. She endured the cold thanks to them, managing to find a cave. There she kept safe, using a survival book as a reference. But the cold, her injuries, and malnutrition brought her to the brink, causing her to constantly fall asleep. She wondered if she would be able to hold on. What kept her mind occupied the most was the promise she made to Crash. At that moment, a man with a dog mask sniffed the air, finding his prey. Unbeknownst to her, the hunter was approaching the cave where Bianca was. Hungry, she left the cave in search of food. She found an acorn, perhaps dropped by a squirrel. The moment she bent down, an axe flew towards her, hitting a tree. The tree was cut by the axe and fell onto Bianca. The fall created an impact that raised the snow around. Bianca had rolled on the ground, dodging. Before her, the grim hunter emerged with a look of irritation. "What a scary thing! You aren't changing your expression at all." The dog-masked figure never imagined he would have so much trouble just to hunt a Valheim's wife. Lifting Bianca, he advised her to stay quiet. That way, she might have the chance to go home. He stole the ornament from her hair, something that looked expensive. "If I sell this, I can get some money." Bianca missed home. The days that should have been fun reading books while watching Crash train, all the days spent by his side, left some impression on her heart. Even without emotions, she knew those moments were enjoyable. She wished to have emotions so that she could feel even more comfort and happiness regarding those moments. Bianca murmured, "I want to see your desire, Mr. Crash." The moment her voice was heard, a hooded being overflowing with hatred in its gaze appeared behind the hunter. A single punch thrown by Crash made the man bend, releasing Bianca. The masked man stepped back. "Who are you?" Crash held Bianca in his arms, praising her for managing to survive. Now she could rest and leave the rest to him. Their eyes met, and Bianca fell asleep, placing Bianca on the ground. Crash let the raven, Cream, take care of her. Cream, before they reached the Nevada region, warned that both he and Ebelask could not become a combat power for him, as they had no obligation to cooperate. That would violate the Infiltrator's code. The Raven would not be useful in battle, and Crash knew how Ebelask feared. The master of the crazy dog would face him alone, but had been warned the last time he found an opening. But the butcher was still stronger than him. It didn't matter how strong the man was. Crash was convinced that he would be the victor. As the young man's aura overflowed, the butcher recovered his axe and bellowed, "Who are you? Why are you interfering?" Crash demanded, "Give it back!" The single word left the butcher confused with the energy it commanded. Crash retrieved the hair brooch. "This belongs to my wife, butcher dog!" Bergman immediately charged upon discovering who the young man was. Crash blocked the attack. The enemy was strong, and he could barely keep up using his sixth sense. The butcher had an aura at the upper tier of the expert level. The butcher marked Crash as a target. The reward for the rescue would increase tenfold. The axe attacks continued, but Crash blocked each one of them. The protagonist was able to launch wide attacks, but the axe strikes also blocked him. The grinding combat continued, and the butcher laughed maniacally. "Are you going to keep blocking an attack?" He managed to push Crash back. The blow hit him and knocked him away, causing him to drop his sword. Having enjoyed himself, the butcher now planned to finish the battle. However, looking around, he realized the boy had vanished, while Kryn watched the fight sitting on Bianca's head. The butcher tried to sniff out Crash. The protagonist emerged as he stood up. He had covered himself with snow. He attacked the butcher with a punch to the side of his body, causing internal wounds to his ribs. Even with the blunt sword strikes, Crash couldn't expand his dominance against the brute force of the enemy. To charge a more powerful attack, he used the flames of Ignis, seeing that the boy was truly determined to eliminate him. The butcher's eyes widened in complete shock. Before the fire attack occurred, Crash felt the world around him shake. The Ghost Bond skill had fallen upon him, sealing his movements. The butcher's voice reached his ears. "How does it feel? Can you withstand knowing that the rescue team would arrive soon?" The butcher didn't stand still. He attacked Crash from behind to finish him off before anyone could interfere. Crash felt his senses being destroyed. The secret technique seemed to use sound to channel aura and paralyze the nerves. The old Crash would have been eliminated a long time ago, even upon discovering what was happening, but being someone different, he pushed all his aura to the absolute limit and activated hyperperception, awakening the sixth sense. As the butcher walked towards him, Crash was already planning what to do. He stood still, deceiving, allowing the enemy to be arrogant. The butcher attacked, but the swing of his staff was just a bluff to see if the boy was really trapped. With skill, Crash saw the attack pass through him without doing anything. The butcher had previously noticed that the boy defended himself in an abnormal way. There was a possibility that his ability was not active. Therefore, he kept his distance, knowing the young man was dangerous. That was not enough. Crash, with his eyes closed, shattered the handle of the axe and his flame-filled sword, surged towards the man with the dog mask, realizing he would have to be even more cautious. The butcher began to taunt the young man, reminding him that he could still attack his young wife, but Crash did not fall for the provocations. When he saw the boy look in another direction, the butcher jeered, "What's wrong? Are you finally suffering from phantom binding?" With such an idea, he conjured an ability that summoned various ghostly axes. The battle technique advanced on Crash, who sighed, lightly with the sword above his head. The protagonist blocked each of the attacks, but the pressure on him was immense. Next to Cream, Ebelask, also in bird form, asked if the young man would be okay. She really wondered if she should step in, but if it were her to eliminate Bergman, his master would hunt her down. Bergman's master was the so-called Mad Dog, a monster that would hunt her to the ends of the earth. Suddenly, Bergman walked towards Bianca and the birds, and Ebelask noticed and lifted her wing. She did not want to be a coward who does not honor her debts. At that moment, Kryn pushed her, throwing her aside. Crash had chosen to fight this battle, and the Raven wanted to see him win. Therefore, he asked Ebelask to have a little more faith in him. Ebelask tried to calm herself, swearing she would find a way to bring Crash back to life. If something happened to him, the protagonist was reaching his limit. He used his sixth sense to track Bergman's movements, and had already burnt a lot of aura to the point of barely being able to keep his eyes open. From there on, he would have to rely on his instincts. Going back to wielding his sword, he deflected the phantom axes. One of the axes moved abnormally. It seemed like a feint. The axe was carried by Bergman. Crash's eyes widened when he heard a voice coming from the axe. "This is your end." The young man had noticed a long time ago that he had no talent. He had always been weak and was not like the geniuses who could crush their enemies with pure strength and honorable strikes. For this reason, Crash had hidden his claws until the moment he truly needed to use them. The world seemed to shatter, and a crimson energy emerged in his eyes. An overload was activated within his body. An erosion that devoured the flames took shape. Using the flames of Ignis, he converted the world's stored erosion energy in his body into raw power, forcibly breaking his physical limit, able to maintain this state for only 3 seconds. Crash's body was already showing signs of collapse when a red liquid flowed from his eyes, unleashing all his power in a single attack. He planned to end the battle at that moment. The butcher was taken by surprise. He couldn't even follow the boy's movement with his eyes. Knowing he would perish if he did not move, he opened his mouth, activating a ghost echo ability. Crash's attack missed the butcher's vital points. The sound of the echo had distorted his vision at the last second, causing him to hit only the shoulder with his free hand. The butcher channeled crimson energy into it. The sharp claws attacked Crash from the side. His sixth sense seemed to scream in alert. The erosion was disappearing in a second. Those claws would hit Crash's hand. A mouth emerged. He would not be defeated easily. Crash's arm was hit, and the hand that carried the devouring mouth detached from his body. As the arm continued to fall, the mouth unleashed a devastating power, and Crash's eyes shone with an intense silver energy. Even Kryn was shocked to see such power at the moment when his life was at risk. Crash's focus reached a state of absolute omniscience. Even a drop of water falling with the snow could be distinguished upon touching his body. The butcher only felt all his equipment being destroyed when a blow struck him. Faced with the sword strike, he knew he had lost. Kryn formed a shield around Bianca so she would not be hit by the shockwave of the attack. Behind its raven appearance, the erosion being watched carefully what it saw. The strong would defeat their enemies without even shedding a drop of sweat, but for the weak to claim victory, a sacrifice was necessary. Crash fell to his knees on the ground, his body soaked with the red flowing from his wounds. The arm with the mouth and the palm appeared to be rotting. The raven approached him slowly with a questioning look. Kryn asked if he was satisfied. The strength within Crash's body drained away as his body toppled forward. Amid the satisfied murmuring, hardly had his enemy fallen, but he too. Kryn called Ebelask, who summoned one of his puppets to carry Crash and Bianca. With a magic circle, they returned to the Blue Pine Pavilion. In Crash's previous life, when he met Bianca, one day she recommended that he express his emotions more. He had an irritated look and was asked what hurt more, having emotions or not having any at all. He warned that regaining emotions in the state she was in, Afaria would suffer a great shock. Bianca didn't care, even if she perished. He shouldn't either, since they were almost strangers. On the day the head of House Hardenhearts went mad, he destroyed the entire family. Bianca was the only survivor, saved by the genetic sister. After that, House Valheim decided that the marital alliance was no longer worth it and broke the agreement. That meeting was for the two to say goodbye, as they would not meet again. Crash warned, "If you do something that puts you at risk, don't expect me to save you." He used the power of the Cursed Devourer and set Bianca free. It took a long time for the snow doll's curse to be devoured. After finishing, he asked how she felt, but the moment she regained her lost emotions, she became a monster. Years later, enemies of the Ephania Empire, wizards from the Starlun Kingdom, were attacking the frozen areas. They blamed the fall of the second prince of the empire, defeated by hardened hearts. To prevent emotions from leaking out, the empire sent the King of Poisons. He was the one who caused the madness of the head of House Hardened Hearts, which made him destroy the family and start a war. They remembered how, eventually, the White Witch had eliminated the King of Poisons and retreated to the Ice Palace. At that moment, as the duo was talking, they were attacked. The one who orchestrated the attack had been Crash. However, the attack made him be seen by a group of hidden soldiers. Crash had to flee, and amidst the snow, came across the castle where Bianca lived. He wondered if he really had to ask for her help. He banged on the gates fervently, asking Bianca to open them. The gate opened, and an ice magic emerged, shooting arrows at the soldiers. Bianca passed by Crash, greeting, "It's been a long time, Crash." What they didn't expect was for one of the soldiers to throw a sword at them, and that single blade hit Bianca, who fell in front of the protagonist. The nursery held her in its arms while Bianca murmured, "Do you remember what I told you about what was more painful? To have or not to have emotions?" Bianca finally revealed what had happened on the day of the incident when she was saved by Jennifer. Her sister had said something to her. "It's not that I hate you. I actually hate myself for feeling this. You are not the kind of child that people should hate." Hidden in the chest, she had to wait for the moment when it would be safe to come out. At that time, when she had no feelings, she didn't understand her sister's words. Feelings were contradictory and complex. Therefore, even when the Hardened Hearts house, which had made her suffer, collapsed, she felt nothing. Now that she knew such a feeling, she finally understood her sister's words. Jennifer loved her. She wished her heart had awakened earlier. They could have shared good moments with the family, talked to them, and maybe that situation wouldn't have happened. Bianca even thought that perhaps if everything went well, they could get married. Crash watched Bianca's farewell until the very last second she was alive. With that memory in mind, he woke up thinking of her. He felt someone touch his hand. Hearing Crash call her, Bianca said, "I am right here." The cream was sitting on him, watching him finally wake up while he wondered if he was in the Hardened Hearts house. Bianca asked if his arm hurt. The first thing he did was reprimand her for going to the mountain alone. She was confused because the idea was to get the warm snow fungus for him. Sighing, Crash sat up in bed, propping himself up with the only arm he had left. He took the brooch and put it back in Bianca's hair. With a smile, he stroked her head. "Thank you. This was exactly what I needed to elect her." Bianca changed the subject, remembering that I have no emotions and you worked hard to save me. I do not feel happiness or anger, not even sadness. What Bianca felt was that she could no longer bear it. She did not want to be someone without expressions forever. "I want to laugh with you. I want to cry with you, but I do not want you to lose your emotions and end up like me. If you cannot smile, I will not be able to either." Bianca held Crash's hand to show that she was with him. The crush asked her not to worry and revealed, "Unless you are the direct target, the effect of the curse is reduced by half." Upon hearing such words, Bianca made the request, "Please help me find my feelings again." The power to steal curses awakened within Crash when the second seal was unlocked, the one that required him to become the most important person to Bianca. Emotions flowed into her. That was the plan from the beginning. Crash extended the arm that was left to him in her direction, and among the bandages that hid the wounds, a tongue emerged. He smiled at the young woman, who jumped onto him, hugging him while crying rivers of tears. Crash always doubted that Bianca could express her feelings. How would the world now seem gray like before? Having cried for several minutes, Bianca's nose was swollen. She lay down on the bed with Crash, watching her return to her emotionless expression. Crash wondered if she was still processing all the feelings. Someone knocked on the door. Jennifer announced her presence and asked for permission to enter. Upon entering the room, Jennifer was surprised. "Bianca, what happened to your eyes?" Crash asked why Jennifer was there. She announced that her brother had asked her to invite Bianca for lunch. Since Crash was unable to move, she informed that they would bring his food to the room. Crash understood that this was a way to allow the family to talk to Bianca. Without even looking at Crash, Jennifer walked away. In Crash's past life, it was around this time of year that Jennifer had apologized to Bianca. The protagonist gave guidance to the young woman who had regained her emotions. If Jennifer changes her tone of voice, don't feel that you have to forgive her if you don't want to. Just ignore her. When this is over, we will go home together. Upon hearing him, Bianca looked side to side and, preparing herself, smiled to show she was happy. Bianca said her goodbyes and Crash waved at her. Immediately, he asked Ebelask to lend him his ears. Rats followed Bianca to listen to the Hardened Hearts family conversation. If Crash threatened to destroy the place, should they say something to Bianca that displeased her? Cream, however, warned that he needed to worry about his arm first. and questioned him. "Do you really think you can steal my immortality at this stage?" As expected from a sharp returner, as always, shaking the stump that was his lost arm, Crash asked Cream not to worry. That was nothing a saint of the Holy Land couldn't fix. The Holy Land of Freedom was one of the 4 great nations. It was said there was a saint with divine powers capable of even resurrecting the departed. Cream questioned if he thought the family would spend a fortune to help him. However, Crash had another solution. He could change who would do the job. Cream was startled. "So that's why you recruited her?" Crash smiled mischievously. If it were Ebelask stitching a lost arm, it would be child's play. The little rat on Crash's shoulder smiled shyly. Cream cursed him for being a calculating bastard. However, it was just a coincidence. Crash never planned to lose his arm. The Raven questioned him if he thought he could restore his arm. He envisioned an item that might help him, the Sword of Darkness. The being behind the Raven was even more surprised. The Sword of Darkness, a legendary swordsman who had roamed the world. He was a genius of the raiding movement, known for eliminating enemies before they could see his blade. He was the most valued subordinate of the Crimson Garden. Kryn furiously rejected the idea. The swordsman was his masterpiece, and he would not give him up. Crash smiled at the Raven, questioning whether Kryn did not want him to become even stronger. Seeing the Raven make a fuss, Crash recognized that he cared about all the subordinates. Finding the weakness of the Crimson Garden, the main body, was actually simple. Arthur had already said that the Crimson Garden saw through the eyes of the subordinates, which is why it grew unknowingly tethered to them. With a saint by his side, if they continued to heal the subordinate while forcing him to answer questions, they would eventually find the location they wanted, just as Arthur had done in the other life. Crash planned to use such a method of persuasion. He remembered how the raiding style of the swordsman still existed. With a smile, he instructed, "You do not see everything. If you transplant the swordsman's arm into me, I can bring his legendary technique back to life." The Raven was surprised, turned his back to Crash, and wondered if that would be the subordinate's wish. The Raven told him to wait 2 days, and Crash thanked him. Thus, he managed to solve the problem of the lost arm. Now he would have to wait to see how the Valheim house would react to the news sent to them. Crash needed to clarify things with the Hardened Hearts regarding his arm. He was also concerned about Ariad, even having reported that he was at the Green Pine Mansion. He would find out that Crash was actually at the Hardened Hearts residence. The protagonist sighed, planning to send him to mind his own business. Still, he felt a bad omen regarding Bianca's conversation with the family. She gave a straightforward reply. "I refuse," the elder brother of the Mariocan Hardened Hearts demanded. "Give the position of bride to Jenica." He wanted Jenica to marry Crash, who had possibly awakened his powers. Bianca, however, stated that she would not give up what she wanted. She would not abandon the position of Crash's bride, the only thing she was determined to protect. Mary Oaken blustered, "Do you think a cursed girl like you can fulfill that role?" Jennifer slammed her hand on the table, warning her brother that he was going too far, but he told her to think about the family. Seeing her sister at a loss for words, Bianca questioned, "What exactly has the family ever done for me? I couldn't care less about what happens to this house. From the beginning, there has never been a place for me in Hardened Hearts. Father, brother, neither of you ever cared about me, did you?" Jennifer and Mary Oaken stared at her in shock. Bianca gave her ultimatum. "I have already made my decision. Even if I am expelled and lose everything, I will stand by Crash." Mary Oaken stood up furiously just as someone entered the room. The person was Crash, who claimed to have overheard the conversation and that he could not ignore it. Mary Oaken tried to get him to leave the room, asking him to rest. Crash held up 2 fingers to him. "There are 2 rumors spreading. The first is that I saved my wife and defeated the dog butcher at the cost of my own arm. The other is that the security of Hardened Hearts is so pathetic that it cannot even stop the hunter and allowed a direct descendant of House Valheim to be in mortal danger." He smiled as he asked which rumor was more convenient for Mary Oaken. With their father away, the young man grit his teeth, knowing that Crash wanted something. He pointed at Bianca, instructing her brother, "Let her do as she wishes, whether to continue with the engagement or not." Mary Oaken saw his sister run to hide behind Crash, who warned, "I will not throw her out. The thing I care about the least is some curse." Mary Oaken did not believe that her sister had formed a bond with someone. He sighed, conceding. Crash remembered one more thing before leaving. "Priest Harden would not be able to successfully heal my arm. The results will be clear in 2 days. Please report as soon as you see them. It'll be good for the priestess's reputation, won't it?" Not understanding what Crash was planning, Mary Oaken decided to follow his plan. Jennifer, behind Mary Oaken, revealed her surprise. The sister was completely changed, holding hands with Crash. Bianca even asked if they should already get married. Away from there, a handful of wounds held a report. The man with white hair and a cloak covering his armor murmured Crash's name. Crash was trying to do push-ups with one hand, and it was harder than he imagined. To combine the sword-looting technique with a unique attack, he needed to focus the aura and the extreme blood poison on a single point. He tried to do it with one arm, but it seemed impossible. He trained while the snow fell and the reality of being weak did not change. Still, he was happy to be able to activate the snow doll curse correctly. It protected him and made him notice the weakness of the extinction of erosion by flames, the ability that burned the world. It corrupted the power absorbed by the blood poison. Using Ignis, it allowed him to break limits and wield massive firepower, but in return, he would become unable to move when the power ran out, leading the body to extreme heat. Crash could have his organs incinerated, so he could not use the ability for some time until he could control it. Raising his hand to the sky, he saw a bird flying, which made him think of something. The cold aura of the moon could help him withstand the fire. He smiled, formulating a new goal: the shadow of the moon of the Flame Emperor, Aslan and Gret. Crash decided to steal Aslan's curse. As soon as his arm was healed, Crash went to a large tree. That was Ebelask's home. The tree suddenly opened, and a young servant appeared. She was Unit 8, produced by Ebelask. The young woman had rabbit ears, which caught his attention. The inside of the tree was like the hall he had visited last time. The places seemed to be connected. Ebelask was happy to welcome Crash and showed an arm, warning that she was ready for the transplant. It was a dry arm, and its appearance made Crash question whether they could stitch it immediately, even though it was possible. Ebelask warned that it would hurt. A servant appeared with a hammer, and Ebelask asked if he preferred to undergo the procedure while unconscious. Ebelask smiled, advising him not to cry later. Crash sat down, and Unit 8 held the arm that was to be transplanted. Crash lay on the table, and the dry arm was placed beside him. Ebelask raised her hand over the dry arm and Crash's shoulder, releasing dark energy to begin the process. The arm started to move, and Crash had to bite on a cloth to avoid screaming. The regeneration and fusion of the arm were completed. Next came the connection between the nerves. A pain spread throughout Crash's body, originating from his arm like a lightning strike, finishing the transplant. Ebelask sighed, impressed that he had not passed out. The straps holding Crash were removed, and he stood up. The dark arm seemed perfectly attached to his body. Immediately, Crash used extreme blood poison, and the assimilation began. The arm that had seemed dry came to life. Around the arm, bubbles started to emerge, as if it were transforming into a monster attached to the young man's body, should he be unconscious. The arm that absorbed the extreme blood poison. He could go insane while adjusting the amount of aura. Crash allowed him to get used to it little by little. Soon, the arm returned to normal. It was in perfect condition, as if Crash had never lost the original. The protagonist analyzed the new arm, commenting on how it looked like the original. Crime approached, asking Ebelask to lend the training field so that Crash could learn the sword drawing technique. The young-looking outsider crossed her arms, warning that she was not Cream's servant to obey him. It was then that Cream commented, "I heard you were looking for an ancient book called Hakutu." Ebelask's eyes sparkled. "Lord Cream," she submitted, and ordered Unit 8 to guide them. Crash followed the maid while being questioned about how much he knew about the drawing technique. The protagonist asked if the technique was strong and was punished by the Raven's pecs for asking a stupid question. Crime revealed that the technique might seem like a simple attack, but it was different. Unlike other techniques, it divided the stored aura into thin parts to exert maximum effect, making them explode. The granulated aura increased the acceleration of the explosion, and while still in the sheath, the sword would explode outwards. Crash still did not understand, but receiving the sword delivered by Unit 8, decided to try to reproduce the skill. The Raven ordered to let the arm act on its own. The sword was inside the sheath. Crash smiled confidently. He had a good teacher, and the original arm that used such a technique had everything. All that was left was his will. He decided that until he could reproduce such a technique, he would try again and again. A few days later, Crash was still trying to execute the sword drawing technique. The aura overflowed from the weapon, and when it reached its peak, he drew it, unleashing a devastating blow. Unit 8, training with him, dodged and reported how he was still managing. Seeing the sword with the eyes, the technique was fast enough to not be seen, so to reach it, the sword also could not be perceived. Crash understood that this was an aura problem. He would need to return to the Blue Pine Hall to learn the next technique and become stronger. He thanked Unit 8 for helping him train, but she didn't need any thanks. On the contrary, she tried to motivate him. "Lord Crash, please have more confidence. Someone with a unique number like mine is at the level of master fighters." Still, those that Crash would face were one level above. Ebelas, who ended up going to the training field, upon seeing that everything seemed calm, warned that she had finished and was about to go meet him. Crash noted that he would be returning to Valheim, which surprised her as she would be left alone. He explained that if she went with him, they could be discovered, so she could stay where she was if she wanted to. Ebelas, who felt a bit of fear remembering how there were many frightening people within the Valheim family, Crash asked if she was talking about the 5 ancients. They would definitely take note. He asked her to stay there. He also had something he wanted to request. Keep an eye on someone named the King of Poisons. Don't let him interfere with the hardened hearts. Protect the head of the Gurakan family, Ebelas, who was quite surprised and worried to receive the request to deal with one of the top 10 strongest. It wouldn't be easy, but since the mission was just to protect someone, she believed she could manage. Crash smiled as he thanked her and asked her to let him know if she needed anything. Ebelas sighed, for Crash didn't even imagine what she wanted to ask. Unit 8 asked her master if everything was all right, and Ebelas commented to her subordinate that in the past she would have followed Crash, but if she remained with him longer, she would eventually see him as her old companions. Ebelas didn't know what she would have to face alongside Crash. He could find several dangerous corruptors. With a dismissive smile, the young woman in simple clothes asked if it would not be better to continue being someone who just stays at home. Still, she swore that if any danger threatened Crash wherever he went, she would return the favor he did for her appropriately. Ariode welcomed his master, carrying Bianca in his arms. The protagonist asked if something had happened. The butler informed that the head of the house had asked about him regarding the report that Crash was with Lady Bianca. The area of stated that the message had been faulty. As the messenger always underestimated him, he made careless reports to the main house. He blamed him without a doubt and dismissed him. Crash thanked the butler for taking care of everything. According to Ariode, soon the head butler would reassess Crash. The protagonist thought such a thing natural. The head butler was the one who commanded all the butlers in Valheim, the only one capable of evaluating the direct lineage. It was she who determined the future treatment of the lineage based on the test results. Dealing with a master-class head would be a problem to steal the lunar shadow form of the Flame Emperor, Aslan Ygritte. Crash needed the power of the family. He imagined that the time had come to prove his strength. He asked if anything else had happened. The butler reported that Darling Danfarian had told him to deliver the materials as soon as Crash returned. Crash thanked him, but before entering the mansion, Ario reported one last thing. Lady Charlotte arrived. She is in her room. Young master. From the window, the young Charlotte was staring at Crash. She jumped from the ledge, greeting the protagonist. She stuttered upon seeing her sister. Charlotte played with her braids while complaining lightly. "You bored me while I waited." The protagonist stated that he thought she would take a little longer. With a smile, Charlotte questioned if he thought it was better that she wouldn't visit him. The protagonist tried to say that she had misunderstood, but in a dark voice, she questioned him if he really thought that. The pressure that Charlotte exerted made him realize that she might have already surpassed the master level. Playing with Crash, Charlotte poked Bianca's cheek, asking if he had fought hard to save her. Crash stepped back, but Charlotte quickly reassured him. "I don't want to steal your fiancé, but it makes me sad." Crash furrowed his brow, telling her not to look at him. He was already surprised that she was in his house. Charlotte smiled upon hearing him and replied teasingly, "Your house!" Stomping hard on the ground, she released an aura that destroyed the soil. Even the butler was surprised by the young woman who questioned her brother. "This mansion belongs to the Valheim family, so it's ours, right? I just came back home too, and yet you act this way. Isn't it a bit much?" The protagonist was surprised as Charlotte got angry as quickly as their mother. When asked if she was angry, Charlotte smiled. "Yes, I thought I was the closest to you, and you still kept secrets from me." She looked at him suspiciously. "You made a contract with a god and still became an expert at the intermediate level. You've grown, Crash." The protagonist was astonished. His sister had already awakened the mental eye that sees through everything. Charlotte was looking at him curiously, sensing an uncomfortable energy. The protagonist then understood why the butcher hadn't been able to defeat her. Charlotte not only awakened the mental eye, but also the next stage of the ability, the Eye of the Stars. With this, she could see the world of erosion. The illusions of the butcher dog wouldn't work on her. This also allowed Charlotte to see Crash's current condition. The protagonist had previously used the black crimson flames and asked Kryn how they looked. The Raven saw them as something dark, but unless one was a devourer or a servant of erosion, humans could not see them that way. It was like the marks of the servants. Crash also explained that erosion was different. They were the world of erosion, while he was a blend with the aura. Most people would end up thinking he was cursed. Despite Crash's words, he couldn't relax. His sister approached, asking if he had equipment. Crash stated he would try to obtain it, and the sister recognized his greed. Charlotte asked him to leave Bianca in her room and follow her to the training ground. The young warrior was eager to test her brother's strength. Soon the two arrived at the training ground. Crash never imagined he would duel with Charlotte. Her level was different, so he had never faced her before regression. Charlotte drew her sword, asking if he had learned many techniques. She warned him, "If you hold back, I will be angry." The protagonist prepared himself. Charlotte pointed her sword at him as he prepared to draw his. Even after a few minutes of waiting, Charlotte did not hear him draw his sword or use the aura. She questioned why he was not attacking, and as there was no response, she advanced first. The sword approached quickly. Crash closed his eyes. A heat arose in his body. He burned the world of erosion and pushed his body beyond limits. The duration of the limit break would last only 1 second. As soon as he began to draw his sword, dark flames emerged. He executed a style of the extinct flames of erosion with the draw strike. Charlotte was taken aback. Crash's sword blocked hers. The young girl felt that her brother was using all his power from the start and followed up, returning a sword strike. The protagonist did not back down. His eyes shone. In the next second, he raised the sword and launched a vertical cut from top to bottom. The flames descended upon Charlotte. Breaking his sword, Charlotte felt that her brother was still hiding something. As the sword had broken, she conjured the aura of the sword to replace it. Against the symbol of a master swordsman, Crash could not defend himself. The sword in his hand flew away. Charlotte wanted to see what her brother would do without the sword. An eroding energy gathered in his hand at the center of his palm. A mouth appeared. The thrown sword pierced through the mouth in Crash's palm, and he used it to make a thrust. Charlotte looked to the side, surprised. The sword had passed by the side of her face, blocked by the aura she was exerting. Crash recognized that, with the current strength he possessed, he could not pierce her aura, but at least he had managed to reach her.